Chapter 2935. While Jianshin was breaking through in the Two-World Mountain, the Darkstar tribe was not completely peaceful. When the countless members of the Darkstar tribe learned that the great ritual that could change the fate of their entire tribe had failed due to the interference of foreign cultivators, all of them were furious. For a time, cries of "execute the foreign cultivators" and "kill all the foreign cultivators" could be heard everywhere in the Darkstar tribe. Due to the great ritual, the Darkstar tribe's resistance and hatred towards the foreign cultivators reached an unprecedented level. Even some of the Darkstar clansmen, who had originally accepted and tolerated the existence of cultivators from the Outer Realms, began to view them with hatred. The 36 main cities of the Darkstar tribe, as well as the countless towns and villages in the wilderness, were shrouded in heavy killing intent. Foreign cultivators, return our divine beasts. The divine beasts are offerings to our ancestors. What right do you have to steal our divine beasts? The divine beasts belong to our ancestors. The foreign cultivators are a bunch of shameless bandits, stealing our divine beasts and ruining our great ritual. All the foreign cultivators have committed unforgivable crimes. Foreign cultivators, return the divine beasts. This was the fury of the entire Darkstar tribe, as well as the hatred of the entire tribe. However, they soon found a way to vent their hatred. An ancient technique flowed out of the royal capital and spread to the 36 main cities of the Darkstar tribe, as well as the countless towns and villages scattered across the land. This was a supreme curse passed down from the ancestors of the Darkstar tribe. A portion of the curse had been spread to the entire Darkstar tribe. The Darkstar Emperor had given his orders. He was to gather the will of the entire tribe and activate the supreme curse. As a result, the entire Darkstar tribe became busy. Countless drops of blood were sent out from the 36 main cities, distributed to the surrounding towns and villages. At that moment, under the gathering of their overwhelming hatred, the countless Darkstar clansmen showed unprecedented unity. Everyone put down everything in their hands and began to use blood as ink. They began to draw inscriptions on the walls of their homes, on the streets and alleys outside, and on the walls of every city. These runes were a part of the supreme curse, and the blood used to inscribe the runes was all taken from outside martial artists. Immediately, the heavy smell of blood filled the 36 main cities and the countless towns and villages of the Darkstar race. In particular, in the 36th main city, a faceless statue was built. The Darkstar race had mobilized the entire race's power to cast the ultimate curse. Clearly, they had to go through a series of preparations and arrangements. There were many details involved, and those arrangements could not be completed in a short period of time. The same thing happened in the royal capital of the Darkstar clan. All the Darkstar clansmen in the royal capital had been split into two groups. One group was responsible for repairing the royal capital after battle, while the other group was responsible for drawing the same incantation on the streets and alleys of the royal capital with the blood of the foreign cultivators. Even the walls were covered in the same incantation. There was also a faceless statue in the capital of the Darkstar race. In the sky above the royal capital, the 10 divine halls had already returned to their original positions. However, perhaps because they had learned their lesson last time, the 10 divine halls had all been replaced. All of them were medium-quality god artifacts. After all, the Darkstar race was once a glorious race that had given birth to grand exalts. They had given birth to countless experts, so it was not surprising that they could produce divine halls with 10 medium-quality god artifacts. However, without any exception, the divine halls that had reached medium-quality god artifact were all damaged. Some of them had already been repaired, while the remaining ones were clearly cracked. The divine halls had all lost their former magnificence. However, even with that being the case, medium-quality god artifacts were far tougher than low-quality god artifacts. Emperor, the statues of the curse in the royal capital and the 36 main cities have all been completed. It's just that we've tried many methods, but we still haven't been able to find a medium that can allow the power of the curse to descend on the foreign cultivator. If we are unable to accurately lock onto that foreign martial artist, then our clan's supreme curse will have nowhere to land. The Darkstar Emperor sat on his throne in the Divine Hall of the Darkstar Divine Hall. Below him, the 7th Hall Master, Deity, reported politely. The Darkstar Emperor took out a jade bottle from his space ring unhurriedly. As soon as the bottle appeared, it slowly floated over to Deity under an invisible force. At the same time, the Darkstar Emperor's deep voice rang out. There's some of the foreign cultivator's flesh and blood in there. Divide the flesh and blood into 37 portions and place them in the statues of the royal capital and the 36 main cities. Use them as a medium for the great curse. Genshin, who had broken through near the entrance of the two worlds, had no idea that a fatal trap that the entire Darkstar race had set up was silently approaching him. He was currently at the most crucial moment of breaking through with the laws of the sword. The laws of the sword had already appeared around him, condensing strands of sword chi around him. They revolved around Genshin like elves, radiating with a thick, immortal intent. Genshin's clothes and hair fluttered despite the lack of wind, making him seem like an otherworldly existence. This was the concept of a sword immortal. Genshin had reached such a level. Not only did his bearing seem otherworldly, but even the sword chi he produced possessed a thick concept of immortals. At this moment, Genshin's presence suddenly swelled. It was also at this moment that the sword chi that revolved around him suddenly shone with dazzling light. All the sword chi seemed to rise to a higher level at that moment, becoming even more powerful, brighter, and more dazzling. It was as if Genshin's sword chi had undergone a qualitative leap, reaching a whole new level. His laws of the sword had formally broken through, surpassing the minor achievement of Sword Immortal. He had reached the partial achievement of Sword Immortal, which could also be understood as the mid-achievement of Sword Immortal. With the breakthrough of the laws of the sword, Genshin immediately felt like a new door had opened before him. He saw an even vaster world of the way of the sword through the door, as if he had entered another world. That was not all. As his laws of the sword broke through, his soul benefited as well. It rapidly strengthened at an unbelievable rate, breaking through various barriers like a hot knife through butter. Only when it reached the 9th heavenly layer of infinite prime did it stop. Chapter 2936. The breakthrough with the laws of the sword and the increase in the power of his soul seemed to only be a beginning to Genshin. In the next moment, a mysterious power suddenly surged out from Genshin's body. It rapidly fused with Genshin's soul with the comprehension of the laws of space. Is this the power of the soul of the spatial insect emperor? The appearance of the power immediately shocked Genshin. He was unable to hide his joy. Back on the Delight Plane, he had successfully refined the soul of the spatial insect emperor with the assistance of the Rain Abyss, perfectly inheriting its ability to control space. However, the spatial insect emperor was a terrifying existence on par with Grand Primes after all. With Genshin's strength back then, he had only been able to absorb a tiny portion of the power, even though he had managed to refine it with the Rain Abyss assistance. He was unable to absorb most of the remaining power due to his soul being too weak. In the end, the remaining power had been hidden deep within his body. Now that the power of his soul had increased, the power of the spatial insect emperor hidden within Genshin's body finally emerged once more. It began to fuse with Genshin's soul, allowing him to absorb it effortlessly. Immediately, Genshin felt his comprehension of the laws of space rapidly increase. His control over space became greater and greater. The increase in his comprehension of the laws of space was completely different from the increase in the laws of the sword. Even with the assistance of the birthing fruit of ways, he still needed to comprehend it bit by bit. The true effect of the Tao raising fruit was to purify a layer of fog, allowing a martial artist to perceive the great Tao of the heavens and earth more clearly and intuitively. Whether or not a martial artist could smoothly make a breakthrough would depend on their perception and good fortune. As a result, there was an 80% chance of breaking through after consuming the birthing fruit of ways. It was not 100%. If one's comprehension was insufficient, even if they were at the limits of their current level of cultivation, there was still a chance of them failing to break through after consuming the birthing fruit of ways. However, absorbing the power of the soul of the spatial insect emperor was completely different. The power of the beast was extremely pure power of laws. It was the laws of the world, so there was no need for him to comprehend it. Every bit he absorbed would mean a slight increase in his comprehension of the laws of space. This method of comprehension had completely defied common sense, surpassing the limits of the laws. It could not be replicated. Across the history of the various worlds, Jian Shan was probably the only person who could achieve something like this with a special soul that had fused with chaotic force. The power of the spatial insect emperor constantly surged out. Jian Shan did not reject any of it, absorbing it all in a single stroke. Immediately, his comprehension of the laws of space skyrocketed, from the laws of the second heavenly layer. In just a few seconds, he reached the third, and then the fourth heavenly layer, fifth heaven, the sixth heaven. In the end, after who knew how long, Jianshan's comprehension of the laws of space finally reached the eighth heavenly layer of infinite prime. He was unable to fuse in any more power of the beast. After such a huge increase, the power of the spatial insect emperor's beast did not run out. However, the remaining power was hidden away deeply, as if it was waiting for Jianshan's next breakthrough. Jianshan slowly opened his eyes. The moment he did so, he immediately felt that the world had become different in his eyes. In a daze, he seemed to be able to see the composition of space. The space, or even the entire world, became clearer in his eyes. Apart from that, he also felt that the connection between his body, his soul, and the space had become even more inseparable. The laws of space are at the eighth heavenly layer of infinite prime. If I want to increase it again, I'll have to wait until I reach the major achievement of Sword Immortal. The power of the spatial insect emperor's beast is tremendous. Although it won't be able to make my comprehension of the laws of space reach the same level as the spatial insect emperor in the past, it'll reach the level of chaotic prime at the very least. I'll have to rely on my own comprehension for the rest of the journey. My laws of the sword have reached mid-sword immortal. According to the classification of the Saint's world, it should be around the level of 8th heavenly layer infinite prime. Of course, I've only just reached mid-sword immortal. Once I reach the peak of mid-sword immortal, I'll be equivalent to a 9th heavenly layer infinite prime. Jianshan silently sensed his strength and immediately felt delighted. He had already increased by far too much compared to before his breakthrough. When I reach the major achievement of Sword Immortal, I'll be a chaotic prime. I've completed the increase in my laws. Next is the chaotic body. Jianshan sucked in a deep breath and slowly calmed his surging emotions. Afterwards, he took out a large pile of God-tier heavenly resources from his space ring and began to sort them out. If I want to break through with the chaotic body, I need to absorb energy. It doesn't seem like a lot, but if I measure it with the strength and level of chaotic force, I'll need thousands of portions to refine. It's very difficult to fill the gap with divine crystals. Fortunately, there are many God-tier heavenly resources that can increase cultivation in the medicinal garden of the Dark Star race. It'll save me quite a lot of effort. Afterwards, Jianshan began to adjust his condition. Very soon, he found an ancient imprint in his body. This imprint was left behind when he devoured the life of a divine king, life-devouring beast in the Two-World Mountain. Jianshan silently observed the imprint in his body. He gradually frowned because the imprint always gave him an uncomfortable feeling. He immediately understood that the existence of the imprint was not a good thing. He could not help but think of the strange mist in the two-world mountain, as well as the cultivators in the outside world who had gone mad after absorbing too much of the mist. The two-world mountain is not a good place either. It hides mysteries that even I can't see through. I can't just devour the life of life-devouring beasts. It looks like I need to be more careful when I move about in the two-world mountain in the future. Genshin thought before immediately beginning to refine the imprint in his body. Even though the imprint was difficult to refine, it came from a divine king, life-devouring beast after all. It was not difficult for Genshin to refine. He just needed to expend a little more effort. Before long, Genshin completely removed the imprint. Afterwards, Genshin began to consume God-tier heavenly resources as he prepared to break through to the chaotic body. If these heavenly resources were used to refine pills, not only would the violent and brutal effects become gentle and easier to absorb, but their effects would also rise to a whole new level. However, Genshin clearly had not mastered the art of alchemy, so refining a god-tier pill was basically impossible. As a result, he could only consume the heavenly resources in the most primitive way possible. Consuming the heavenly resources in such a way naturally came with certain side effects, because many of the heavenly resources were extremely violent and brutal. The slightest carelessness could lead to more harm than good. However, Genshin possessed the chaotic body, so he could completely ignore all of these side effects. No matter how violent and brutal the effects were, he could forcefully refine them. Chapter 2937. Genshin had experienced breakthroughs in the chaotic body over a dozen times already, so he was already familiar with the process. He accumulated energy through consuming god-tier heavenly resources, and after shattering his core and experiencing pain again, he finally condensed a chaotic Niden that belonged to the 15th layer of the chaotic body. His strength experienced a qualitative leap once again with the breakthrough of the chaotic body. Not only did his chaotic force become even more powerful, but even his chaotic body underwent a complete metamorphosis. His body had become even more powerful. The defenses of the chaotic body had reached an extremely shocking level. The only price was that the chaotic Niden in his dantian had shrunk by countless times. Before breaking through, the chaotic Niden in his dantian had accumulated an almost inexhaustible amount of chaotic force. Even if he used his full strength in a battle, it would take an extremely long time to deplete it all. Now that he had broken through, the tremendous amount of chaotic force had been compressed, so there was not much left. It could only last a few battles. My grievances with the Darkstar clan still haven't come to an end. I'll have an intense battle with the Darkstar Emperor in the future, so I need to replenish some chaotic force, thought Genshin. Although he had successfully broken through, he did not stop cultivating. Instead, he continued to consume the remaining god-tier heavenly resources to replenish his chaotic force. However, after reaching the 15th layer of chaotic force, the level of energy had changed. As a result, Genshin had to expend even more energy to replenish each strand of chaotic force than before. Replenishing his chaotic force had become even more difficult. Several days later, Genshin had used up all the god-tier heavenly resources he had obtained from the medicinal garden of the Darkstar clan. Even after consuming so many heavenly resources, the chaotic Niden in his dantian did not expand by much. Genshin was forced to stop cultivating now that he had used up all his resources. He finally opened his eyes slowly. The moment he opened his eyes, 2 beams of sword light shot out from his eyes. They were extremely resplendent, dazzling, and eye-catching. The entire world became brighter with the appearance of these 2 beams of sword light. Right now, Genshin's eyes were extremely sharp. They shone brightly as if they nurtured surging sword chi. Weaker people would feel like they had been stabbed in the eyes just by looking at them. They would be in excruciating pain. However, his sharp gaze did not last for very long. Very soon, Genshin purposefully erased it, and it became ordinary again. He silently sensed his strength after breaking through, and he could not help but become more confident. After breaking through to the 15th layer, my chaotic force is around the level of an 8th heavenly layer infinite prime. As for the chaotic body, with the current strength of my chaotic body, attacks below the 8th heavenly layer of infinite prime shouldn't be able to get through my defenses. Only attacks above the 8th heavenly layer can injure me. Apart from the Darkstar Emperor, there are no 8th heavenly layer infinite primes among the Darkstar clan. Even the publicly acknowledged greatest expert of the 10 divine halls, the leader of the first divine hall, is only a 7th heavenly layer infinite prime. However, the average battle prowess of the primordial realm experts of the Darkstar clan is greater than in the Saints' world. The leader of the first hall can barely get through the defenses of my chaotic body, but he can only leave behind some insignificant wounds. Jianchen smiled in satisfaction. He knew that whether it was the Two-World Mountain or the Darkstar clan, there was nothing that could threaten him now. Unknowingly, he had become the greatest expert of this world. Although he had reached the apex, Jianchen did not dare to be arrogant at all, as he deeply understood just how complicated this miniature world was. After all, this was a special place created by the two Grand Exalts. Many Grand Primes, who stood at the apex of the Saints' world, were unable to do anything about this world. As a result, the Darkstar realm could not be underestimated. It's time to go find the Darkstar Emperor. Jianchen stood up, but at this moment he suddenly frowned. His calm heart suddenly began to thump heavily without any prior signs. An ill omen suddenly appeared in Jianchen's head. It actually made Jianchen feel like he was in trouble, as if a great danger was silently approaching. It's the Darkstar clan. As a high-level infinite prime, Jianchen's senses were extremely sharp. Now that he had a deeper comprehension of the ways of the world, he only needed to peer into them slightly to vaguely sense what was going on. After all, only the Darkstar Emperor possessed a slightly higher cultivation than him in the Darkstar clan. He was unable to peer into some people with higher cultivation, but once someone who was weaker than him targeted him, it would be very easy for him to sense it. The disaster descended extremely quickly. As soon as Jianchen sensed it, he felt an invisible, mysterious power rush over, descending on him in a single instant. Immediately, Jianchen felt his chest tighten. Even his heart stopped beating for a moment. The chaotic force and blood in his body were affected as well, slowing down. However, this was not the most terrifying thing. What shocked Jianchen the most was that he could clearly sense his body disappearing bit by bit, starting from his feet. The flesh, tendons, bones, and skin of his feet were melting away at a visible rate. They were being obliterated and reduced to nothingness in the end. There was no pain, no feeling. The disappearing flesh was as if it had been stripped of its sense of pain. This was a mysterious power that Jianchen had never seen before. He could already predict that if he did not do anything to save himself, he would completely vanish from the world in the end. It would be equivalent to his soul being wiped out. This is a curse. The Darkstar clan has actually used such a terrifying curse. Is it really like what the Darkstar Emperor said in the past, that they've used the power of their entire clan to activate the supreme curse left behind by their ancestors? Jianchen's gaze became extremely shocking. He circulated the chaotic force within him as quickly as he could to fend off the power of the curse. The curse was just too powerful, and the level involved was just too great. It had completely exceeded Jianchen's comprehension. As a result, even though he resisted as hard as he could, he was still unable to stop the power of the curse from killing him mercilessly. He could only make a little more time at most. At that moment, Jianchen vanished. He had already left this place. He seemed to have completely fused with space as he moved through the Two-World Mountain rapidly. He had just broken through to the 8th heavenly layer of infinite prime, so he pushed his laws of space to the limit. He crossed the Two-World Mountain as quickly as he could, hurrying towards the Darkstar world. He did not dare to waste any time. This was because the longer he wasted any time, the greater the damage he would suffer. More and more parts of his body would be destroyed. Chapter 29:38. At that moment, the two world mountains that made the expressions of many outside cultivators change. Where the Dark Star race viewed it as a forbidden zone where even the 10 Hall Masters did not dare to set foot in easily, was like a garden in Jianshin's eyes. He fused with the space around him, moving in a straight line. He followed the various markings he had left in the Dark Star race, hurrying towards the royal capital as quickly as possible. Even if he came across the territories of primordial realm, life-devouring beasts, he would pass through them without any fear. At this moment, when he used spatial teleportation, he appeared above a primordial realm, life-devouring beast by coincidence. Due to the descent of the power of the curses, Jianshin was rather caught off guard. As a result, he failed to conceal his presence properly as he traveled at full speed. As a result, the primordial realm, life-devouring beast immediately sensed him the moment he appeared. The primordial realm, life-devouring beast immediately snapped open its eyes, and it suddenly raised its huge head. However, just when it opened its mouth and wanted to roar out furiously, it suddenly became stunned. This was because it clearly sensed an intruder suddenly appear above its head, but when it raised its head, it discovered nothing. It did not sense anything either. The intruder's presence only appeared for a split second before vanishing once again. The primordial realm, life-devouring beast, was rather confused. It stared blankly at the empty sky for a while before shaking its head violently in the end, treating it as a hallucination. It no longer thought about it anymore. As Jianshin hurried towards the Dark Star race through the two world mountains at full speed, the minds of all the Dark Star race had already gathered. All the Dark Star clansmen had gathered on the streets of the royal capital, the 36 main cities, and the various towns and villages below them. They sat on the ground and formed seals with their hands. They changed hand seals in a neat and orderly manner as they chanted. It seemed like they were chanting some sort of incantation. The icy streets and the surrounding walls were covered with inscriptions inscribed in blood. They were so dense that they were innumerable. At this moment, as all the Dark Star clansmen chanted and changed hand seals, the inscriptions on the ground began to shine as well. It seemed to form an indescribable connection with the Dark Star clansmen. The inscriptions possessed wondrous power. When the Dark Star clansmen focused on chanting, the incantation condensed all their wills, and they began to gather towards the 36 main cities. 36 faceless statues stood in the center of the 36 main cities. Every single statue contained a sliver of Jianshin's flesh and blood. As a result, some of Jianshin's presence from the 36 statues exist on them. The power of the curse condensed from the will of the entire Dark Star race had turned into an invisible power of obliteration that enveloped the faceless statues. Using the presence of flesh and blood on the statues as a guide, it crossed through space to obliterate them. The same with the 36 main cities as well as the royal capital. Across the entire Dark Star race, all the Dark Star clansmen, regardless of whether they were old or young, took part in this. They became a part of the countless wills, silently contributing their strength. At this moment, Jianshin could truly be described as standing up against the entire Dark Star race. Everyone wanted to kill him. Every single Dark Star clansman had become Jianshin's enemy. They had become a part of the force that wanted to kill Jianshin. In the royal capital of the Dark Star race, the Dark Star Emperor and the 10 Hall Masters did not take part in the incantation. At this moment, they all stood guard in their respective divine halls. They were stern and stern. Secretly, they had already set up formations. They had even created layers of powerful killing formations that could be described as an all-encompassing net in the eyes of the Hall Masters. None of them knew whether the cultivators from the outside world who had disguised themselves as Kuan Tian would come or not, but they had already made preparations for any sudden situations. Hall Master Jianshin, do you see that? We've already gathered the power of our entire race to cast the supreme curse. Although our current power is nowhere near a billionth of our former glory, which prevents the power of the supreme curse from reaching its peak. Once the curse is cast, it's enough to kill any chaotic prime. You will be avenged soon, murmured the newly appointed Hall Master of the 8th Divine Hall. Originally, he was a Vice Hall Master of the 8th Hall. He was a second, heavenly layer infinite prime. Now he had become one of the 10 Hall Masters. He was the weakest Hall Master of the 10 Divine Halls. Kuan Tian, rest in peace. The enemy who killed you won't be able to live for much longer. Feng Shui murmured in a low voice as she sat on the Palace Master's throne in the 10th Divine Palace. Her expression was filled with grief. However, at this moment, the space above the royal capital of the Darkstar clan suddenly distorted. In the next moment, an extremely powerful sword intent suddenly expanded. It blanketed the surroundings, enveloping the entire royal capital in a single instance. Jianqin had already appeared in the royal capital silently. However, his feet had already vanished. Half of his calves below his knees had been obliterated. The powerful curse followed him like a shadow in outer space, locking onto him firmly like a parasite. He was unable to break free at all. This time, Jianqin did not hide his presence at all. He completely erupted with the presence of an 8th heavenly layer infinite prime, causing the surroundings to churn. Under the pressure of the presence, the many Darkstar clansmen who chanted in the royal capital immediately felt their breathing become sluggish. As they paused, the power of the curse from the imperial city weakened significantly. A supreme curse condensed from the will of the entire race. So that's how it is. With Jianqin's insight, he only glanced around and immediately understood the composition of the curse. At the same time, the Darkstar Emperor's presence suddenly erupted from the Darkstar Divine Hall. He immediately appeared before Jianqin, facing off against Jianqin from afar. With the appearance of the Darkstar Emperor, a triangular shield also emerged from nothingness. It instantly became incomparably huge, forming a huge shield that covered the entire royal capital. It hovered in the air, protecting the countless Darkstar clansmen below. The Darkstar Emperor's face became as ugly as it could be as he looked at Jianqin. The thing he dreaded the most had still happened. The cultivator from the outside world who had destroyed the hopes of their entire race had broken through with a fruit of ways in the end. His strength had undergone an overwhelming change. Before he broke through, the tenacious vitality he had displayed was already very difficult to kill. Now that his strength had increased, the Darkstar Emperor lost even more hope of killing him. Behind the Darkstar Emperor, the 10 Divine Halls moved rapidly, casting down layers of formations in a single instance. At the same time, countless formations in the royal capital were activated. They sealed off the surroundings and gave off powerful pulses of energy. When the formations enveloped the entire royal capital, they enveloped Jianqin as well. Chapter 2939. Everyone, keep him busy. Use the power of the curse to kill him. He won't be able to live for much longer, the Darkstar Emperor ordered coldly. He had also realized that Jianqin had become even more difficult to kill now that his strength had increased. The only thing he could do right now was to stall for time and let the power of the curse slowly take effect. Ha ha ha! Jianqin could not help but laugh aloud when he heard the Darkstar Emperor's words. Darkstar race, you've actually mobilized the power of your entire race, gathering the will of your entire race to deal with me. How extravagant. It's just that you're far too naive. Do you really think you can deal with me with something like that? Darkstar race, since you've sent thousands of your clansmen to deal with me, don't blame me for wiping out your entire race mercilessly. Towards the end, a vicious light flashed through Jianqin's face. The power of the curse continued, and his injuries worsened with every passing second. He had no other choice now that things had developed like this. In the next moment, Jianqin used his supreme will. In a single instance, Everything within 120,000 kilometers fell under his control. He had become the ruler of the world, where the lives and deaths of everything were within his control. After breaking through with the laws of the sword, the range of his supreme will had increased from 100,000 kilometers to 120,000 kilometers. Jianqin did not seem to do anything. He only needed to think, and afterwards, something that terrified the Dark Star Emperor and the 10 Hall Masters happened. In the imperial capital of the Dark Star clan, the bodies of all the people who had chanted their incantations rapidly disintegrated. In a single moment, they completely vanished. Not even a speck of dust was left behind. They had all been killed by an invisible power, leaving behind a ground covered in blood. The ground of the royal capital immediately became a sea of blood. After breaking through with the laws of the sword, Jianqin's ultimate sword intent had clearly increased as well. Although it was still unable to kill infinite primes, it was much more powerful than before. Now that he could obliterate a celestial-grade martialist with his supreme will, he could completely erase his opponent's physical body from this world. In the blink of an eye, the imperial capital of the Dark Star race became a dead city. The countless Dark Star clansmen who were chanting in the imperial capital vanished before they could even cry out. In the sky, the eyes of the Dark Star Emperor and all the primordial realm experts in the royal capital widened. All of them stared at the ground below in shock and disbelief. They were stunned. There were several tens of millions of people gathered in the royal capital. There were several tens of millions of Dark Star clansmen, yet they had all disappeared right before their eyes. This strange scene had exceeded all of their imaginations and had overturned their understanding of the world. Even someone as powerful as the Dark Star Emperor was dumbstruck at this moment. It took him a long time to come back to his senses. Where did you hide our clansmen? At this moment, a vice leader of the 10 halls bellowed out sternly. His heart shook and his body trembled. He refused to accept what had just happened, nor did he want to accept the fact that the several tens of millions of clansmen in the royal capital had all died. However, the sea of blood that flowed through the imperial city and the thick scent of blood that permeated the entire world assaulted their nerves wave after wave. It seemed to have become ironclad evidence, explaining to them the cruel truth before their eyes. Why, you killed them all? The Dark Star Emperor slowly returned to his senses. His eyes were about to pop out of their sockets as he said with a trembling voice, as if he had suffered a great blow. Jianqin's reaction was the complete opposite of the Dark Star clansman. A smear of joy appeared on his face because he could clearly sense that the power of the curse on him had weakened drastically after losing the Dark Star clansmen in the royal capital. Although he had done this at the cost of several tens of millions of Dark Star clansmen, Jianqin did not regret it at all, nor did he feel any guilt. This was because the great curse was activated by the will of the Dark Star clansmen. If he did not kill the Dark Star clansmen, he would be the only one who would die in the end. Dark Star Emperor, with your cultivation, do you still need to ask me a question like this? You already know the answer. In order to stop the so-called supreme curse of your Dark Star race, I had no other choice. Dark Star Emperor, you forced me to do this. You forced me to wipe out the entire Dark Star race. The royal capital is only the beginning. Jianqin said coldly. With that, he appeared on the edge of the formation in a single moment. Sword light flickered on him as he began to smash through the formation with his full strength. Although some of the power of the great curse had been weakened by removing the royal capital, there were still 36 cities that had not been destroyed. As a result, he needed to leave as soon as possible. This was because his body was still being destroyed. If he stayed too long, only death would await him. As a result, Jianqin did not hold back at all when he smashed through the formation. He directly erupted with his full strength. Boom! With a great rumble, the powerful formations cast down by the upper echelon of the Dark Star race immediately began to tremble violently. Afterwards, with a series of cracks, 3 layers of formations were destroyed by Jianqin in a single strike. The eyes of all the upper echelon of the Dark Star race narrowed in shock when they saw this. This was because they had paid an extremely great price to set up every single formation in the royal capital. They had even gone as far as to use some of the treasures they had kept for many years to act as the eyes of the formations, all so that they could unleash the full power of the formations. As a result, every single layer of the formations was extremely powerful, enough to block the attacks of 9th heavenly layer infinite primes. Even against new chaotic primes, the formations would be able to block a few attacks. However, at this moment, Jianqin had smashed through 3 layers of formations in a single strike. The supreme strength that had completely overturned everything they knew immediately shocked all the primordial realm experts of the Dark Star race. This meant that the strength this outsider had erupted with had completely reached the level of chaotic primes. Swish! At this moment, a huge seal flew over, smashing towards Jianqin with surging energy. The Dark Star Emperor had taken action. He used the royal seal to attack and stop Jianqin from smashing through the formations. At the same time, the 10 hall masters returned to their respective divine halls one after another. Every divine hall was shining brightly. The energy stored in the divine halls was being consumed at an extremely terrifying rate, using the power of the divine halls to stabilize the formation. Chapter 2940. Jianqin naturally understood the Dark Star race's intentions. However, he was no longer the same as before. His breakthrough in the laws of the sword had allowed his strength to increase in all aspects. It had truly undergone a qualitative change. Even though he was still an infinite prime, his actual battle prowess had reached the level of chaotic primes. Even in the immortals' world and the saints' world, chaotic primes could be regarded as experts who reigned supreme over an entire region. Even in peak organizations that stood at the apex of a plane and possessed grand primes, chaotic primes were equivalent to great elders. They possessed great authority. To no surprise, Jianqin had become one of them. With the current strength of the Dark Star race, how could trapping a chaotic prime be easy? Jianqin swung his fist as chaotic force surged through his body. The toughness of the chaotic body was on full display. With a single punch, he shattered space. In the end, the destructive fist landed heavily on the royal seal. Boom! With a great rumble, terrifying ripples of energy wreaked havoc. The imperial capital of the Dark Star race, which had just been repaired, was reduced to ruins once again. The formations that enveloped the entire city trembled violently under the impact of the powerful energy. The energy within the formations was rapidly depleted. After all, this was a clash on the level of chaotic primes. It was completely different from when Jianqin had destroyed the grand ceremony. The Dark Star Emperor's royal seal was blown away by Jianqin's punch. It dimmed, and all the energy it had condensed had dispersed. The power of Jianqin's punch was enough to completely suppress the Dark Star Emperor's medium-quality god artifact. Of course, this did not mean that the medium-quality god artifact was not powerful. It was just that as a medium-quality god artifact that could only be unleashed by chaotic primes, it clearly could not unleash its full power in the hands of the Dark Star Emperor. Moreover, it was also because the medium-quality god artifact was not in perfect condition. Its power would naturally be greatly reduced when it was damaged. The Dark Star Emperor was stern. With a wave of his hand, the triangular shield turned into a streak of light. Like a thin blade, it shot towards Jianqin with lightning speed. At the same time, the Dark Star Emperor took a step and arrived before Jianqin in a single instance. As his energy surged, a huge, blurry figure of a fist immediately appeared behind him. The figure fused with his presence, causing the Dark Star Emperor's vital energies to rise to the peak. He threw an extremely resplendent punch. This was not a god-tier battle skill, but a powerful secret technique. As the Dark Star Emperor punched out, the energy in the surroundings was madly sucked in, causing the power of his punch to skyrocket. Jianshin's eyes were piercing, and his face was cold. He suddenly turned around and reached out with powerful chaotic force condensed in his right hand. With a heavy collision of energy, he caught the triangular shield firmly. At the same time, he formed a sword with his right hand, and surging sword chi immediately condensed. It collided with the Dark Star Emperor's attack with dazzling light. Boom! This time, there was a deafening rumble. It was even more intense than the previous clash. All the formations that enveloped the area trembled violently. The 10 divine halls that hovered in the air swayed violently. After the strike, the Dark Star Emperor was blown backwards uncontrollably. This was the first time he had been knocked back since he clashed with Jianshin. Jianshin shuddered as well, and he took 3 steps back. The Dark Star Emperor's strike had also reached the level of chaotic primes. Even though it was not as powerful as Jianshin's, it was still enough to shake up Jianshin. After knocking back the Dark Star Emperor, Jianshin immediately turned around and attacked the formations behind him with his full strength. Sword chi surged from him as the chaotic force within him circulated rapidly. He struck the formations heavily with his full strength. Bang! 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 Immediately, another 3 formations were shattered by Jianshin. Only 6 of the 12 formations remained. The Dark Star Emperor became anxious for a rare moment when he saw the formation that trapped Jianshin rapidly dwindle away. Jianshin's strength had increased by so much that it had completely exceeded the Dark Star Emperor's expectations. For the first time in his life, the Dark Star Emperor, who had always believed himself to be invincible, felt like he could not defeat Jianshin right now. I have to stop him, or once he breaks free, it'll definitely be the end of my race with his ability to kill tens of millions of people instantly. The Dark Star Emperor made up his mind. He spat out a mouthful of essence blood, and the seal before him immediately shone brightly. The pressure of a medium-quality god artifact radiated from it, and it ripped open space, instantly descending on Jianshin's head. Although I can temporarily unleash the might of the past, the artifact spirit is already dead. Moreover, you only have the power for a single strike. What can you do to me? Jianshin snorted coldly when he sensed the Dark Star Emperor use the same trick again. He turned into a sword and stabbed towards the seal with overwhelming might. Boom! With a great sound, large patches of space cracked. The seal that had appeared above Jianshin's head and was about to crush down on Jianshin was knocked high into the air. As for Jianshin, the sword light around him dimmed, and his body slammed into the ground from the air. However, he immediately soared into the sky in the next moment. His aura surged, and he did not seem dispirited at all. He ignored the Dark Star Emperor. Surging sword light erupted from his body again. His entire body was like a sharp sword, turning into a streak of light that stabbed towards the formation. The first formation destroyed. The second formation destroyed. The third formation destroyed. The fourth formation destroyed. This time, Jianshin was unstoppable. He shattered 4 formations, so there were only 2 formations left. However, after this short delay, the damage caused by the great curse power was even more severe. The flesh on his leg had been completely destroyed, and it had almost reached his knee. The parts below his knees had disappeared. He simply looked like a disabled person. Oh no! The Dark Star Emperor's expression immediately changed when he saw that he had lost 4 formations in an instant. At the same time, Jianshin suddenly aimed his hand at the Dark Star Emperor. He used the laws of space as hard as he could. In the next moment, the Dark Star Emperor only felt his vision blur. The familiar landscape had vanished, and Jianshin had vanished as well. Caught off guard, Jianshin had changed his position with the laws of space, and he had appeared elsewhere. The Dark Star Emperor immediately paled. At this moment, Jianshin struck out with his full strength again. The surging sword chi that was filled with destructive chaotic force collided with the last 2 formations loudly. Immediately, dense cracks appeared on the formations, as the energy in the sword chi was constantly released, and as the attacks from chaotic primes rammed against the formations wave after wave, the 10 divine halls in the air directly shook violently. Amidst the violent tremors, a few more cracks appeared on the inside of the 10 damaged temples. The appearance of the cracks seemed to indicate that the formations cast down with the 10 divine halls as their cores had reached their limits. Finally, with a heavy sound, the final formation that trapped Jianqin shattered loudly. Chapter 2941. Jianqin's departure made the expressions of the Darkstar Emperor and all the primordial realm experts from the 10 divine halls change drastically. The Darkstar Emperor immediately closed his eyes and fused with the world around him, forming a strange connection with the Darkstar world. A while later, he seemed to sense something, and his eyes snapped open. He said, "In that direction, the closest city is Doi City." He must have left in that direction. "Let's go to Doi City immediately." The Darkstar Emperor waved his hand, and a teleportation formation disk immediately appeared out of nowhere. He stepped onto it in a flash and vanished. The Hall Masters and Vice Hall Masters of the 10 divine halls emerged from their divine halls as well. Their faces were all extremely ugly as they felt heavy and worried. They followed the Darkstar Emperor into the teleportation formation with their shrunken divine halls. During the time that Jianqin had gone to the Two-World Mountain for his breakthrough, the Darkstar race had already made many preparations to prevent a situation like today. They had even prepared several dozen teleportation formation disks that the Darkstar Emperor was currently using, connecting them to the 36 main cities. This plan was to deal with Jianqin's guerrilla warfare with the laws of space and destroy the 36 main cities one by one. With these teleportation formation disks, the experts of the Darkstar race would be able to arrive before Jianqin and wait for him in any of the 36 main cities. In order to prevent Jianqin from using the teleportation formations in the 36 main cities, the Darkstar Emperor even ordered all the teleportation formations in the 36 main cities to be shut down. Now, the only usable teleportation formations in the entire Darkstar world were in the hands of the Darkstar Emperor and the other members of the upper echelon. Although they possessed this advantage, Jianqin's ability to wipe out an entire city with a single thought still cast a shadow over the upper echelon of the Darkstar race. Doi City, one of the 36 main cities of the Darkstar race. At this moment, countless Darkstar clansmen in Doi City sat on the ground and chanted. Their hand seals changed constantly as they contributed to the great curse cast by the Darkstar race. At this moment, the Darkstar Emperor suddenly appeared in the sky above Doi City. Soon afterwards, the Hall Masters and Vice Hall Masters of the 10 divine halls arrived as well. As soon as they arrived, they immediately summoned the 10 divine halls before flying into the 10 divine halls to form a formation. Only the Darkstar Emperor hovered in the sky by himself as he faced the direction of the royal city sternly. It's the Emperor and the 10 Hall Masters. Shouldn't they be guarding the royal city? Why have they all come to our Doi City? Is that terrifying cultivator from the outside heading towards our city? The city lord of Doi City discovered the Darkstar Emperor and the others as soon as he noticed them, and he was immediately shocked. The expressions of the Vice City, lords beside the city, lord changed again and again. One of them immediately ordered, 108 kings immediately set up the 100 kings formation. 36 lords quickly set up the encirclement formation. Activate all the formations in Doi City. The city lord of Doi City shook his head powerlessly when he heard the Vice City lord's orders. He said it's useless. That cultivator from the outside world is even more powerful than the Hall Master of the First Hall. Before him, even the entire city of Doi City won't be able to pose any threat to him. We can only pray that the cultivator from the outside world will arrive a little later, because the longer it takes, the more severe the damage from the curse will be. However, as soon as he finished speaking, the city lord's face changed drastically. A tremendous presence suddenly descended and enveloped the entire city with surging, killing intent. Jianqin had silently appeared several tens of thousand kilometers away from Doi City. "We can't let him enter the city, or the clansmen in Doi City will be in danger. Emperor, go keep him busy outside the city." 10 hall masters immediately set up a formation to protect Doi City. The formation of the 10 divine halls can block his laws of space, the Darkstar Emperor called out and immediately approached Jianqin. On the other hand, the temple masters and vice-temple masters of the 10 sacred halls channeled their energy into the sacred halls in an attempt to activate the formation again. Jianqin hovered several tens of thousand kilometers away from Doi City. He did not continue to approach the city. However, his eyes were filled with cold, killing intent as he looked at the city. In the next moment, his supreme will had already expanded, enveloping the entire city in a single instance. With a thought, before the formation of the 10 divine halls could be set up, the countless clansmen of the Darkstar clan in Doi City vanished silently. They seemed to have evaporated into thin air, leaving not a single trace behind. All that was left was a sea of blood that flooded the streets, giving off a pungent smell of blood. In a single instance, everyone in Doi City, including the 108 kings, the 36 lords, and the vice hall masters and city lord, had been reduced to ashes. With the destruction of Doi City, the supreme curse on Jianqin weakened once again. Seeing this, the eyes of all the hall masters and vice hall masters in the 10 sacred halls almost popped out of their sockets. The Darkstar Emperor couldn't help but let out a long roar filled with grief and indignation. However, Jianqin did not care about their feelings at all. He did not have much time left, so he could not waste a single second. As a result, he immediately left through the laws of space after destroying Doi City. Flying Phoenix City. He's gone to Flying Phoenix City. Quick! Hurry over as quickly as you can. The Darkstar Emperor bellowed out furiously. He took out a teleportation formation disc from his space ring again and led the 10 hall masters to Flying Phoenix City. Jianqin had used his supreme will twice in a row, so the 10 divine halls gained a better understanding of the power of his supreme will. As a result, the hall masters no longer cared about wasting energy when they arrived in Flying Phoenix City. They immediately set up formations as quickly as they could, enveloping the entire city. This was because they had vaguely understood the limits of Jianqin's supreme will from the 2 experiences. It could only target cultivators below godhood. As long as they reached the primordial realm, the power that could wipe out everything in a single instance would immediately lose its effects. At the same time, if the formations were powerful enough, they could block out the power that seemed to be able to wipe out everything in the world. Very soon, the formations cast down by the 10 divine halls were completed. However, when Jianqin arrived in Flying Phoenix City, he did not waste any time with the Darkstar Emperor. When the Darkstar Emperor charged towards Jianqin with a surging presence, Jianqin used the laws of space to dodge before directly sending out a strand of sword chi that was on par with chaotic primes towards the formations cast down by the 10 divine halls. Back in the royal capital of the Darkstar clan, the formations that the 10 divine halls had cast down after a long period of preparation failed to stop Jianqin. How could the formations they cast down in a hurry in Flying Phoenix City stop attacks on par with chaotic primes? With a boom, the formations around Flying Phoenix City shattered loudly. In the next moment, Jianqin's supreme will made its way in, and Flying Phoenix City immediately became a dead city. Chapter 2942. Flying Phoenix City was not the end. Afterwards, the 36 main cities of the Darkstar race were destroyed one by one. In just a short amount of time, over 20 main cities had been completely reduced to dead cities. Although the Darkstar Emperor would often arrive before Jianqin arrived at the next city, he was unable to stop Jianqin from massacring the cities no matter what he did. Whether the 10 sacred halls worked together to defend or actively attack, they were unable to stop the destruction of the cities one by one. Before Jianqin's supreme will, they could only protect themselves and prevent themselves from being harmed. They were unable to protect their clansmen. As Jianchen made his way to the 36 main cities, he came across the various towns and villages of the Dark Star race. He discovered that all the Dark Star clansmen in the towns and villages were participating in the supreme curse as well. However, there were no statues in the towns and villages. They only used the incantations of the supreme curse to gather their will in the 36 main cities. In the end, they used the faceless statue in the 36 main cities as a medium to allow the power of the curse to be applied to them from afar. As a result, Jianchen did not pay any attention to the Dark Star clansmen in the towns and villages. His main targets were still the 36 main cities. He had already discovered that as long as he destroyed the main cities and the statues, the power of the will from the towns and villages would be unable to gather, let alone find him in the vast world. Over 20 main cities had weakened the power of the curse on Jianchen by a lot, but the power of the curse from the remaining dozen or so cities continued to erode his body. At this moment, Jianchen's legs had completely vanished from below his knees. Even half of his thighs above his knees had vanished. Furthermore, as time passed, his destroyed body was gradually spreading toward his waist. The abyss of death drew closer and closer to him. Ha ha ha! Dark Star race, I'd like to see whether you'll destroy me first, or I'll destroy your entire race first. After destroying another city, Jianchen vanished as he laughed aloud, leaving behind the furious Dark Star Emperor and the upper echelon. They hovered in the air above the now empty main city. Their faces were ashen, and their hearts were filled with rage. At the same time, they also felt a deep sense of powerlessness. Even the Dark Star Emperor, who had an invincible heart, felt a deep sense of defeat. He's destroying cities faster and faster. If this continues, the 36 main cities will be destroyed before he can be killed by the power of the Great Curse, said the first Hall Lord in a deep voice. Over 20 cities of the Dark Star race had been destroyed. In that short period of time, several billion clansmen had died. Jianchen had already become a demon in his eyes. Emperor, there's nothing we can do to stop him anymore. Do we still have to continue? Said the 7th Hall Lord Jia Di. His face was filled with bitterness. Among the 10 Hall Lords, he was the one who hated foreign cultivators the most. His killing intent towards Jianchen was unprecedentedly great. However, he was truly terrified now. Fear had already filled his heart. He has the laws of space. Even if we continue using the remaining main cities to cast curses on the foreign cultivator, as long as we can't kill him, he'll still have a chance of escaping even if we kill him until only his head is left. As for our race, we'll have to pay the price of destroying all the remaining main cities and the deaths of several 100 million clansmen. The 2nd Hall Lord Anna said as well. Now that things had progressed to this point, all the people of the 10 divine halls wanted to retreat. This was because they could tell that if this continued, the foreign cultivator might not necessarily die, but their race might face the risk of being wiped out. The Dark Star Emperor clenched his fists tightly. His sharp nails had already pierced into his flesh. If one looked closely, they would discover that his entire body was trembling gently. This was caused by his extreme fury. At that moment, the Dark Star Emperor's hatred and killing intent towards Jianchen had already reached the point where it was enough to drown the sky and destroy the world. He was in no hurry to head to the next main city. Instead, he remained where he was. Red light pulsed violently in his blood-red eyes, as if he was struggling inside. Only after a while did he slowly close his eyes. After sucking in a deep breath, he said through gritted teeth, "Execute the Fire Seed plan." In order to deal with Jianchen, the Dark Star race had already come up with many plans. Not only did these plans include attack and defense, but they also included various strategies to deal with unexpected situations. At the same time, they also considered how to escape if the Dark Star race could not defeat Jianchen. This plan was called the Fire Seed Plan. As soon as they heard about executing the Fire Seed Plan, all the palace masters and deputy palace masters looked deeply disheartened. However, they all knew that they had no other choice now that things had developed to this point. In Dark Night City, the newly appointed city lord of Dark Night City was in charge of the great curse of the entire city. Even he himself was making hand seals and chanting incantations, joining in the gathering of his own will and contributing a small amount of power to the great curse. At this moment, the city lord of Anya City immediately took out his city lord token. There were 9 ancient runes engraved on his city lord token. Of the 9 runes, the 8 runes at the front were dim. As for the 9th rune, it was emitting a bright light. The 9th rune is shining. This means executing the fire seed plan. Looking at the shining 9th rune, the city lord of Anya City's face suddenly changed. His eyes were filled with disbelief. However, he soon returned to his senses and abruptly stood up. He roared out, "Everyone in Anya City heed my orders. Execute the fire seed plan and immediately end the great curse. Leave Anya City as quickly as possible." Immediately, all the Darkstar clansmen gathered in Dark Night City were stunned for a moment before they scattered like birds and beasts, fleeing in all directions. It was also at this moment that Jianqin suddenly appeared in the sky above Anya City. His overwhelming presence enveloped the entire city in an instant. He looked at the fleeing Darkstar people and could not help but sneer. "You think you can escape? Do you think you can escape like this?" His supreme will expanded in an instant, enveloping the surrounding 120,000 kilometers. However, just as he was about to kill the fleeing Darkstar clansmen, he sharply sensed that the power of the curse on him had begun to weaken drastically. "Looks like the Darkstar race has stopped using the curse power to kill me. They're finally afraid." A sliver of hesitation appeared in Genshin's eyes as he looked at the fleeing Darkstar people. He had destroyed the cities one by one before because he had been forced to do so. Otherwise, he would have been the one to die. Now that the Darkstar race had given up on killing him with the power of the curse, he found it rather unbearable to continue killing these ordinary Darkstar clansmen. After all, it was not just 1 or 2 lives, but hundreds of millions. In some main cities with larger populations, there were even over 100 million people. He was not a merciful person. He did not have a good impression of the Darkstar clan at all. However, he had killed enough Darkstar clansmen today, and many of them were innocent people in his eyes. Chapter 2943. Boom! With a great sound, Jianqin destroyed the faceless statue in Dark Night City. Afterwards, he immediately left and continued towards the cities below. Although the remaining main cities of the Darkstar race had stopped casting the curses, there were many other towns and villages scattered across the region. The Darkstar clansmen in these towns and villages did not stop casting the curses. As a result, the power of the curses gathered from these towns and villages continued to be cast on Jianqin through the faceless statues. Only by destroying all the statues in the 36 main cities could the supreme curse be completely removed. Jianqin's laws of space had reached the level of an 8th heavenly layer infinite prime, so he moved much faster than regular chaotic primes. As a result, even though the remaining main cities of the Darkstar race were extremely vast, Jianqin still managed to visit them all in a short amount of time. With the destruction of the statue in the final city, Jianqin immediately felt his body become lighter. At that moment, the supreme curse that the Darkstar race had cast on him had completely vanished. Even in the many towns and villages of the Darkstar race, there were still many people who continued to cast the supreme curse. There were still countless Darkstar clansmen carrying out the great curse ritual. But without the statue as a medium, the power of the great curse that had been created afterwards would vanish into thin air because it could not find a target. Blacklight City was the final city where Jianqin had destroyed a statue. At this moment, there was no one in Blacklight City. All the Darkstar clansmen in the city had evacuated after receiving the fire seed plan from the Darkstar clansmen's higher-ups. However, they did not go very far. Instead, they dispersed within 10,000 kilometers of Blacklight City and hid carefully. They stared in the direction of Blacklight City from afar. In the eyes of many of them, this distance was already safe enough. Jianqin's legless body hovered on the roof of the city lord's estate in Blacklight City. Before him was a lump of flesh that gave off the presence of chaotic force. It hovered in the air under an invisible force. Jianqin had collected the flesh from the various statues after destroying them. At the same time, it was the medium that the supreme curse of the Darkstar race used to lock onto his true body. Jianqin slowly extended his hand. When his hand came in contact with the flesh, the mass of flesh and blood immediately withered at a visible rate. All the energy within the flesh was absorbed by Jianqin. After losing all the energy, Jianqin extended his finger gently, and the mass of flesh before him was immediately reduced to ashes. Afterwards, Jianqin remained in Blacklight City. He mobilized the remaining chaotic force within him to heal his wounds. His legs that had been destroyed by the power of the curse began to regrow bit by bit. At this moment, a powerful teleportation power appeared in the sky above Blacklight City. The Darkstar Emperor appeared silently. Behind him, the 10 Hall Lords, the Vice Hall Lords, and the 5 City Lords who were infinite primes all appeared. At that moment, all the primordial realm experts of the Darkstar race had gathered. All of them looked at Jianqin with surging hatred. However, they did not do anything. Instead, they stared at Jianqin's slowly regrowing legs as their temples throbbed. Jianqin did not do anything either. Instead, he hovered in the air emotionlessly. He silently estimated the chaotic force that was rapidly being depleted in his dantian as he sensed his regrown legs. "Have you killed Kuin Tian already?" The 10th Hall Lord, Feng Shui, suddenly asked. She gritted her teeth as she stared at Jianqin hatefully. "That's right. I killed Kuin Tian in the soul-destroying land a long time ago." Looking at Feng Shui, Jianqin could not help but think of the feelings Feng Shui had shown towards Kuin Tian during the time he had disguised himself as Kuin Tian. He sighed secretly. Feng Shui seemed to have been struck by lightning as she shook violently. Although she had already guessed that this would happen, she still held onto some fantasies. She fantasized about whether the real Kuin Tian had been trapped, or whether he was unable to show himself for some other reason. Now, Jianqin's words immediately destroyed all of Feng Shui's hopes. She was filled with grief and indignation. Why? Why did you kill Kuin Tian? Why did you oppose our Darkstar clan? If you needed high-grade divine kinggrass or ancestral sacred ground, we could have given it all to you. We could have even given you the fruit of nurture that we painstakingly cultivated. But why did you oppose us of all people? Feng Shui roared out miserably. If you really needed high-grade divine kinggrass and ancestral sacred ground, we would have taken out all of our stock without any hesitation in exchange for our Hall Lord's life. Why did you have to kill our Hall Lord? Said Do Wu Jin from the 5th Hall. He felt bitter inside, and his face was gloomy. Who would have thought that the 5th Hall Lord that he had revered and respected for so long was actually a cultivator from the outside world in disguise? The Emperor only wants to know what deep enmity there is between you and my clan. Why did you go to such great lengths to infiltrate my clan and ruin our grand ritual? Did the Wood Spirit clan order you to do this? The Darkstar Emperor asked. His voice was extremely heavy as he asked the question that had been weighing on his mind for a very long time. Ha ha ha! You're actually asking me what enmity there is between me and your clan. It seems that even now, you still don't understand who is the one who caused the failure of your clan's grand ceremony. Jianqin laughed aloud. This was the first time he had spoken to the Darkstar clan ever since his identity had been exposed. Afterwards, he took out the divine hull that he carried with him and said, "I'm sure you're familiar with the divine beast that I saved, but you definitely don't know what kind of relationship I have with this divine beast. In my heart, he's as close as a brother. As a matter of fact, he's one of my family. Jianqin suddenly became rather agitated when he reached there. The killing intent that had vanished in his eyes surged out again at that moment. He pointed at the Darkstar clan and said harshly, "And you actually killed a brother that was as close as a brother to me. You used extremely cruel methods to drain all of his essence and blood. In the end, you even wanted to sacrifice my brother's life in exchange for the success of your grand ritual. I have no enmity with your Darkstar clan, so your grand ritual has nothing to do with me at all. However, you shouldn't have sacrificed my brother. You Darkstar brought all of this upon yourselves." Chapter 2944. A Deal. Jianqin was surprised. He stared at the Darkstar Emperor as if he was smiling. He asked, "What kind of deal do you want to make with me?" "Great Emperor, why waste your breath on him? Although our clan's supreme curse failed to kill him, it still injured him quite badly. Why don't we take advantage of the fact that his legs haven't recovered and his battle hasn't reached its peak yet to completely kill him in one fell swoop? He's powerful, but we have several dozen primordial realm experts here after all. If we pay a certain price, it's not impossible," Jadi said through voice transmission. He looked at Jianqin's rapidly recovering legs, and he became more and more anxious. He only felt like the great opportunity to kill Jianqin was gradually slipping away. "Emperor, we've gathered the will of our entire clan to cast the supreme curse, and we've only managed to make him lose his legs after so much difficulty. If we give him time to recover, wouldn't our supreme curse be useless? We can't give him time to catch his breath." The Sixth Hall Master also said to the Darkstar Emperor secretly. The Darkstar Emperor shook his head gently. He enveloped everyone with the power of his soul as his dignified voice rang out in their heads. "You're oversimplifying things. This foreign cultivator is much more difficult to deal with than you imagine him to be. Before he broke through, it would have been difficult for the Emperor to kill him. Now that his strength has skyrocketed, he's no weaker than the Emperor at all. Even though the Emperor is extremely unwilling to accept this, he must admit that the Emperor has already lost the ability to kill him. As for his missing legs, you don't understand how powerful his physical body is. Even if he doesn't have legs, it won't affect his strength too much. Now, we can only change our strategy." All the Hall Masters and Vice Hall Masters fell silent when they heard the Darkstar Emperor's message. At the same time, they thought about the strength Jianqin had displayed when he destroyed the formations they had cast down in the royal capital in such a short amount of time. They felt powerless inside. The Darkstar Emperor gradually calmed down as well. Since he had decided to change his strategy, his mental state changed rapidly. He stared at Jianqin with shining eyes and said slowly, "Although the Emperor has never been to your saint's world, he does have some understanding of the vicious people there. In your saint's world, you will always follow the extreme law of survival of strength and benefits. When the benefits are enticing enough, it can even easily make brothers of the same father and mother turn against each other and make loving couples kill each other. The Emperor wants to make a deal with you. He wants to take out a treasure that you cannot refuse, or even dare to refuse, in exchange for something in your possession." Jianqin's eyes turned cold when he heard that. He could already vaguely guess what the Darkstar Emperor wanted to exchange for. However, before he could react, the Darkstar Emperor continued, "The bone of a grand exalt of the Wood Spirit Clan in exchange for the divine beast in your possession. Cultivator from the outside world, let's not talk about the fact that you are not related to that divine beast by blood. Just based on your battle prowess that is comparable to a primordial chaos, a mere God King divine beast is far from worthy of you paying such a price. You must know extremely well just how rare and precious the bone of a grand exalt of the Wood Spirit Clan is. The Emperor wants to use a grand exalt's bone to exchange for your friendship with the divine beast. Not only will you not lose out at all, but it will also be a great opportunity instead." The Darkstar Emperor stood with his hands behind his back as he stared right at Jianqin. He was extremely confident. Just like he had said, his offer was an irresistible temptation to any chaotic prime in the Saints' world. Let alone chaotic primes. Even a few peak experts who had reached grand primes would be willing to go to great lengths for this. After all, this was the bone of a grand exalt. It was definitely a rare treasure. The bone of a grand exalt of the Wood Spirit Clan? Your Darkstar race really is rich. I never thought you would even have something like a grand exalt's bone. However, it's nowhere near enough to exchange for Siyu's life, said Jianchen. The Darkstar Emperor frowned. Not enough? Then what about the Emperor? Humph. Even if I throw in the entire Darkstar race, it's nowhere near as important as a single finger of Siyu's. It's laughable that you actually want to exchange for Siyu for me so that you can continue with your so-called great ceremony. Jianchen sneered. Cultivator from the outside world, don't be so shameless. Do you really think our race can't do anything to you? Tian Shangxian, you should know who you are. If you really offend our race, even if you return to the Saints' world, our race has ways to make you die a horrible death. It's not just you. Even the organization behind you won't be able to avoid it. Jia Di could not help but bellow out furiously. Jianchen looked at Jia Di, and he sneered. Jia Di, the leader of the Seventh Hall, as well as Kuan Tian's greatest enemy. Forget it. Since I've used Kuan Tian's identity for so long, it's time for me to do some things for him. And Siyu, the person who truly harmed you in the past, still hasn't paid the price. The Darkstar Emperor's face immediately changed slightly when he heard Jianchen's murmur. He knew that this was bad. However, at this moment, Jianchen had already appeared before Jia Di silently. Under Jia Di's terrified gaze, he shone with a surging light that enveloped Jia Di. The Darkstar Emperor bellowed out furiously and directly threw a punch with lightning speed. With a thunderous boom, it shattered space as it traveled towards Jianchen. Jianchen also punched back within the light. Chaotic force circulated around his fist as sharp sword chi shot out in all directions, colliding with the Darkstar Emperor's fist. Bang! With a thud, the powerful storm of energy knocked back all the primordial realm experts in the surroundings. This was a clash between chaotic primes. Just the shock waves were devastating. Blacklight City, one of the 36 main cities, was flattened without being able to put up any resistance at all. At this moment, the light around Jianchen suddenly vanished, revealing the 7th Hall leader, Jia Di. However, there was an extremely thin wound between his eyebrows. Blood flowed out from it. Why, you killed Jia Di. The Darkstar Great Emperor was enraged. His eyes became extremely terrifying. He could see at a glance that the 7th Hall Master, Jia Di, had been destroyed in body and soul. Chapter 2945. Very angry? Very angry? Jianchen sneered as he stared at the Darkstar Emperor. He felt delighted inside. Although he had engaged in a great battle with the Darkstar race during the grand ceremony, he had mainly done so to save Siyu and stop the Darkstar Emperor from giving the Darkstar Emperor time for the fruit of ways to ripen. This time he had destroyed over 20 main cities of the Darkstar race because he wanted to destroy the great curse cast by the Darkstar race and save himself. As a result, Jianchen still believed that he had not avenged Siyu. In the past few days, Siyu had been stripped of all his essence blood and suffered such inhumane torture. This was an irreconcilable enmity. He had to vent Siyu. He had to seek justice for Siyu. At the same time, he had to make the Darkstar race pay a heavy price. Destroying the grand ceremony, taking away the fruit of ways, and destroying over 20 main cities was nowhere near enough. You're already so furious just because you've killed a hall master. Won't you have a mental breakdown after what happens next? Jianchen sneered as killing intent burned in his eyes. With a flash, he appeared beside the vice leader of the 7th Hall, Enlai. Enlai immediately paled in fright as if he had seen a ghost. Undisguised fear and panic filled his eyes as he immediately retreated as quickly as he could. and Lai no longer had any thoughts of fighting back against this expert that even the Dark Star Emperor could not deal with. The only thought in his head was to flee, and he fled as quickly as he could. However, the space around him had already changed. Although he retreated as quickly as he could, he remained where he was. He was unable to break free from the restraints of space. It felt as if the space around him had been extended without limit. "Stop!" The Dark Star Emperor bellowed out furiously and immediately moved to save Enlai. Every single primordial realm expert was precious to the Dark Star race. Every single loss would have a huge impact on the Dark Star race's strength. The Dark Star Emperor immediately tensed up when Enlai was in danger. Unfortunately, Jianqin's current strength was no weaker than the Dark Star Emperor. In fact, it might even be stronger. Under such circumstances, it would naturally be extremely difficult for the Dark Star Emperor to save Enlai. In the next moment, a spatial blade appeared in the space around Enlai and disappeared in a flash. Enlai's head was immediately split apart, and his primordial spirit was cut into nothingness. Enlai's body and soul were destroyed. Before his breakthrough, Jianqin's laws of space had only reached the level of a new infinite prime. His laws of space were nowhere near enough to threaten a fourth heavenly layer infinite prime like Enlai. However, now that his comprehension of the laws of space had reached the eighth heavenly layer of infinite prime, the laws of space that he could only use to travel in the past immediately became a powerful method of attack. Jianchen blocked the Dark Star Emperor's attack before gently extending a finger towards the other vice leader of the seventh hall, Kaiser. In the next moment, the space where Kaiser was suddenly collapsed, and a fist-sized black hole appeared. Sharp blades formed from the laws of space shuttled through the black hole. Kaiser's body disappeared amidst a series of shrill screams. Kaiser was dead. He did not even leave behind a corpse after his death. His entire body had vanished. In the blink of an eye, 2 vice leaders had died. This made all the remaining vice leaders shiver in fear. The undefeatable strength that Jianqin had displayed had already filled all the vice leaders with fear. The Dark Star Emperor's face was extremely sunken. Killing intent surged from his eyes. He used his royal seal to attack Jianqin as hard as he could. He used various secret techniques one after another, erupting with surging power. At the same time, the Hall Masters and all the Vice Hall Masters struck out as well. They had grasped many God-tier battle skills and various secret techniques over the long years of cultivation. At this moment, they used all the God-tier battle skills and secret techniques. The pressure in the surroundings immediately surged as powerful energy formed a storm that wreaked havoc. Jianqin did not dodge at all against the attacks of several dozen primordial realm experts. He only produced a resplendent streak of light and dispersed the attack from the first hall leader. Boom! 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 In an instant, Jianqin was swallowed by the attacks from several dozen primordial realm experts. The first and vice leaders all beamed because they saw that Jianqin did not put up any defenses at all. He was using his body to endure their attacks. Fantastic! Even if he doesn't die, he'll suffer a layer of skin after taking on so many of our combined attacks. No matter how tough his body is, it's impossible for him to endure so many God-tier battle skills. At this moment, many of the primordial realm experts of the Dark Star race secretly rejoiced. Originally, they thought this foreign cultivator was undefeatable, but they had never thought he would be injured so easily. But very soon, all of them became stunned. Their eyes widened as disbelief filled their faces. This was because they discovered that Jianqin was not injured at all after taking on all of their attacks with his body. Even when some of their god artifacts landed on Jianqin, they were unable to deal any damage at all. What did that mean? It meant that even when they worked together and used powerful god-tier battle skills and various secret techniques, they were unable to injure Jianqin. I know, this is impossible. This is fake. This must be fake. All the primordial realm experts of the Dark Star race were shocked. Some of them rubbed their eyes viciously as they struggled to believe this. This scene was an enormous blow to the hearts of all of them. This was because this had completely overturned everything they knew. Could a person's body be so tough? Even the Darkstar Emperor's eyes narrowed. He could clearly sense that this foreign cultivator's body was far, far more powerful than before. The primordial realm experts of the Darkstar race were stunned, but Jianqin did not hesitate at all. He stabbed through the sky with a streak of light and beheaded the last vice leader of the 7th Hall. De Fu was dead. Immediately, all the primordial realm experts of the 7th Hall were dead. Afterwards, Jianqin began a one-sided massacre. After the 7th Hall was destroyed, he targeted the 6th Hall. He used the laws of space flexibly, purposefully avoiding the Darkstar Emperor and targeting the 10 Halls. Spurt, the 6th Hall Master, Owen, was dead. Spurt, the 6th Hall Master, Si Wuqing, was dead. Spurt, the 6th Hall Master, Si Wuming, was dead. Spurt, the 6th Hall Master, Augustine, was dead. Spurt, the 3rd Hall Master, Kirito, was dead. Before long, many primordial realm experts had died. The 7th and 6th Halls had been destroyed one after another, while the 3rd, 4th, and 9th Halls had lost their Hall Masters or Vice Leaders as well. This day was definitely the darkest day in the history of the Darkstar race. In just a short amount of time, over 10 primordial realm experts had died in battle. As the greatest expert of the Darkstar race, the Darkstar Emperor could look down on his peers and rival chaotic primes, but he was unable to stop Jianqin's massacre at all. Chapter 2946. With the Darkstar Emperor's bellow, the remaining primordial realm experts immediately returned to their senses. Without any hesitation, they immediately took out their divine halls and charged in as quickly as they could. You 3 go in first. The 10th Hall Master threw them out of the divine hall with reddened eyes. Sorrow and hatred coexisted in her eyes. Once the 3 Vice Hall Masters had all entered the divine hall, Feng Shui wielded a low-quality god artifact sword. Determination filled her eyes as she charged towards Jianqin fearlessly. Feng Shui, go back. You can't harm him at all. Don't do anything stupid. The 2nd Hall Master, who was about to charge into the divine hall, immediately shouted when he saw this. However, when he saw Feng Shui's determined gaze and the courage to give up everything, he immediately sighed in his heart. Without saying anything else, he turned around and disappeared from the divine hall. The 10 divine halls had all been replaced with medium-quality god artifacts. Even though they were damaged, they were still far tougher than low-quality god artifacts. Only after hiding in the divine hall did the primordial realm experts finally feel some sense of security. Afterwards, they paid close attention to the battle outside. They did not control the divine halls to attack Jianqin. When their divine halls were still in good condition, the formations they created through the divine halls were unable to harm Jianqin, let alone now that they had lost the 7th and 6th halls. Not only were the 2 divine halls wiped out, but even the Vice Hall Masters of the 3rd, 4th, and 9th halls had died. With their strength plummeting, they posed even less of a threat to Jianqin. Naturally, the Hall Masters and Vice Hall Masters who had already hidden in the Divine Hall saw Feng Shui's actions. They all sighed inside. Palace Master Feng Shui's feelings for the Kuan Tian Palace Master are too deep. Now that she knows that the Kuan Tian Palace Master has fallen, the blow to Feng Shui's heart is beyond our imagination. Hall Master Feng Shui is facing death with equanimity. With Kuan Tian dead, she clearly doesn't want to live anymore. She's actively seeking death. This outsider's strength is just too terrifying. I really can't believe that he's not even 1,000 years old. No one can save Hall Master Feng Shui now. The primordial realm experts hiding in the various divine halls all sighed. The cultivator from the outside world had already destroyed 2 divine halls consecutively, allowing everyone to witness his viciousness. As a result, they believed that there was no hope for Feng Shui to survive. Jianqin obviously also sensed Feng Shui, who was charging at him aggressively. His expression did not change in the slightest as he extended his finger and pointed at Feng Shui from afar. Immediately, the space around Feng Shui suddenly froze. It was as if time had stopped, causing Feng Shui to maintain her flying posture and be frozen on the spot, unable to move at all. With Feng Shui's strength as a fifth heavenly layer infinite prime, it was impossible for her to break free from Jianqin's spatial restraint in a short amount of time. It's over. Hall Master Feng Shui is done for. Some of the primordial realm experts hiding in the divine halls could not help but close their eyes when they saw this. They could already predict Feng Shui's fate. She would either be slain mercilessly by the spatial blades, or she would be sucked into a spatial crack when space suddenly collapsed, dying without a corpse. However, what happened next surprised the primordial realm experts of the Dark Star race. Not only did Feng Shui not die like they had imagined, but the cultivator from the outside world waved his hand, and Feng Shui directly collided into the 10th Divine Hall, vanishing from there. What's going on? That homicidal maniac actually didn't kill Feng Shui. Immediately, all the hall masters and vice hall masters widened their eyes in surprise. However, before they could think of anything else, a thunderous boom rang out. The Dark Star Emperor had used a secret technique, erupting with his most powerful attack to engage in an intense battle with Jianqin. The royal seal under his control shone with surging might as well. Under the burning of the Dark Star Emperor's essence blood, it displayed its prime might. Immediately, the surroundings exploded. The entire region of space was reduced to darkness. The clash this time caused the surroundings to change in color, and the sun and moon dimmed. The devastating ripples of energy caused the divine halls in the distance to shake violently. However, a dazzling streak of light suddenly lit up in the dark surroundings. Jianqin had turned into a sword, piercing through space as a bolt of lightning and stabbing towards the Dark Star Emperor with dazzling light. Boom! With a boom, the triangular shield in front of the Dark Star Emperor was knocked away by Jianqin. However, the streak of light that Jianqin had turned into did not slow down at all. It tore through the protective energy around the Dark Star Emperor like a hot knife through butter and struck him heavily. The Dark Star Great Emperor was sent flying. More cracks appeared on the medium-grade divine artifact armor he was wearing. The Dark Star race did not lack god artifacts, but across the entire race there was not a single intact god artifact. Almost all of them were damaged. A damaged god artifact was naturally unable to completely block Jianqin's attack. After taking on the attack, the Dark Star Emperor immediately felt his vital energy and blood surge as his organs shook violently. The battle between Jianqin and the Dark Star Emperor lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. After such a long time, the Dark Star Emperor finally began to show signs of weakness. He had gone from being evenly matched with Jianqin to being completely crushed by Jianqin. During the 3 days of battle, the Dark Star Emperor had used his full strength. He had used medium-quality god artifacts time and time again, and he had burned his essence blood time and time again. After a long period of accumulation, his origin energy was finally about to run out. Right now, the Dark Star Emperor was already riddled with wounds. Not only was his body covered in sword wounds, but even his internal organs had been reduced to dust. On the other hand, Jianqin did not show any signs of weakness apart from being in a rather horrible shape. Instead, he became more and more courageous as he fought. He was also covered in wounds, but the toughness of the chaotic body prevented the wounds from affecting him at all. As for the energy within him, it gave the Dark Star Emperor the impression that it was endless, as if it was inexhaustible. Bang! Another boom rang out, and the tattered medium-quality god artifact armor on the Dark Star Emperor finally shattered under the pressure of the strand of sword chi. It exploded into fragments that filled the air. Spurt! The Dark Star Emperor vomited blood as his pale white face was filled with weakness. Jianchen continued his pursuit and struck the Darkstar Emperor's head viciously. The great force immediately reduced the Darkstar Emperor's head to pieces, and even the Darkstar Emperor's entire body exploded from Jianchen's strike. Emperor! In the distance, all the hall masters and vice hall masters who were hiding in the various divine halls let out sorrowful cries. Their eyes were about to pop out of their sockets, and blood was dripping from their eyes. It was as if the sky had fallen. A rain of blood fell from the sky. It was the Darkstar Emperor's blood, dyeing the ground red. Chapter 2947. The figure of Darkstar Emperor's primordial spirit emerged from the bronze lamp. The lamp protected his primordial spirit and saved him from the calamity. In other words, the bronze lamp was the Darkstar Emperor's soul. His soul had already fused with the bronze lamp perfectly. The only way to destroy his soul was to destroy the bronze lamp. As long as the lamp existed, the Darkstar Emperor would never die. Once the lamp was extinguished, the Darkstar Emperor would naturally disperse. Emperor! In the distance! All the infinite primes hiding in the various divine halls cried out sorrowfully. They looked at the Darkstar Emperor's soul and felt like their entire world had collapsed. This was because the Darkstar Emperor was an invincible existence among the Darkstar race. He was undefeatable. When he was a 9th heavenly layer infinite prime, he possessed battle prowess that was no weaker than chaotic primes. Even in the saints' world where experts and prodigies were plentiful, the Darkstar Emperor was an existence that stood at the peak. He could look down on his peers. He was the pride of the Darkstar race, their spiritual pillar. Now, the invincible emperor of the Darkstar race had actually been defeated by an 8th heavenly layer infinite prime, who was less than 1,000 years old. His defeat had an extremely great impact on the Darkstar race. It had also caused the image of invincibility in the hearts of all the Darkstar race to collapse at that moment. It felt as if the spine of the world that supported the world had suddenly snapped. The impact of this on the Darkstar race was immeasurable. At that moment, all the primordial realm experts hiding in the divine halls became dejected. You can't destroy Emperor's soul. The Darkstar Emperor's soul appeared in the bronze lamp. However, he was extremely calm right now. Apart from his gaze towards Jianchen that was filled with mixed feelings, there were no other emotions. All the fury and killing intent he had developed 3 days ago seemed to have vanished with the destruction of his body. I know that with this lamp, I can't destroy you no matter what. I can only destroy your body at most. However, I never wanted to kill you. I just wanted you to pay the price for your actions. Jianchen hovered before the bronze lamp. His face was emotionless, and his eyes were as cold as ever. When Jianchen used the profound sword qi to attack the Darkstar Emperor for the first time, he knew that he did not have the ability to kill the Darkstar Emperor. This was because the bronze lamp was a high-quality god artifact. Moreover, under his observation, he discovered that the high-quality god artifact was not damaged like other god artifacts. Instead, it seemed to be in perfect condition. Even weaker Grand Primes would not be able to destroy a high-quality god artifact, let alone him, who only possessed the battle prowess of a chaotic prime. Pay for what we've done. Haha. The Darkstar Emperor seemed to have heard the funniest joke in the world when he heard that. He laughed aloud. Cultivator of the outside world, look at my clansmen and then look at this world. Then tell me, what have my clansmen done wrong? What heinous crimes have my clansmen committed? But what happened in the end? Generations after generations of our ancestors, generations after generations of our clansmen, will be trapped here forever. That's right. The ancestors of our Darkstar race did have grievances with the Wood Spirit Clan, but all of the grievances and grievances originated from our ancestors' generation. What have we done wrong? What have we done wrong? In the end, we have to be trapped here forever. Do you know that there are countless clansmen of our Darkstar race who have never set foot in the outside world from the moment they were born until the moment they died? All of them know just how colorful the outside world is. All of them know just how beautiful the outside world is. They also know just how easy it is to cultivate in the outside world. Not a single clansman of our Darkstar race envies the outside world. All of us yearn for the outside world. But unfortunately, they've all been trapped in this miniature world by the Grand Exalt of the Wood Spirit clan, unable to leave for the rest of their lives. In the end, they can only die with regret and yearning for the outside world. The eyes of the Darkstar Emperor's soul gradually sharpened. He stared at Jianqin firmly and gritted his teeth. Cultivator of the outside world, then tell us, what have we done wrong to be trapped here forever by the Grand Exalt of the Wood Spirit clan? He's a mighty Grand Exalt. Just how great is his status? Yet he's so narrow-minded, pushing his hatred towards our ancestors onto us innocent people of the later generation. It's already pitiful enough that our Darkstar race has been reduced to such a state. Even if we want to break through to Chaotic Prime, we need to prepare for many years. We need to use the power of our entire race to hold a great ceremony and contend against the will of the Grand Exalt of the Wood Spirit clan. On the other hand, you people of the outside world are blessed with unique conditions, let alone breaking through to Chaotic Prime. Even reaching a supreme cultivation realm like Grand Prime is easier than breaking through from the Divine King realm to the Primordial realm for us Darkstar race. Cultivator of the outside world, tell me, haven't we paid a great price for being trapped here for so many years? Haven't we lost enough? As for everything we've done, it's just to break free from the restraints of the world. What have we done wrong? We Darkstar people have always dreamed of a day when we could be like you, soaring through the vast and bountiful world of the Saints' world freely. We're only working hard for our dreams, for the lifelong wish of all our clansmen. Jianqin was unfazed by the Darkstar Emperor's heartfelt explanation. He had spent quite some time with the Darkstar race, so he understood the situation of the Darkstar world extremely well. You want to hold a great ceremony, and you even want to use a divine beast with a powerful bloodline as a sacrifice. That has nothing to do with me. You can only blame yourself for choosing the wrong target for the sacrifice, Jianqin said coldly. The Darkstar Emperor shook his head and said, We don't regret choosing that divine beast as the sacrificial target at all, because divine beasts that can be used as sacrificial offerings of this level are extremely rare in the world. It's even rarer for one to appear in our Darkstar realm. As long as we encounter one, we will definitely not give up. If time could be reversed and we were given a chance to choose again, we would still choose to use the divine beast as a sacrifice. Jianqin frowned when he heard that. Coldness filled his eyes once again. It's just that we never thought that there would be a person with such terrifying talent behind the divine beast, reaching the primordial realm before the age of 1,000. If we had known about this earlier, we would not have failed the ceremony this time. The Darkstar Emperor sighed deeply. He was filled with regret. Jianqin understood that with the Darkstar race's strength and methods, his chances of saving Siyu would have become extremely slim or even impossible if they had learnt of his existence beforehand. Even he was in danger of dying. This was because as long as the Darkstar race hardened their hearts to destroy the Tao birth fruit or prevent him from obtaining the Tao birth fruit, they would gather the power of the entire race to cast a supreme curse. Then he wouldn't be able to last long before he broke through. Even if he fled to the Two-World Mountain, he would not be able to survive. Not to mention, there was still the Darkstar Emperor as a powerful enemy. He was not the Darkstar Emperor's opponent before he broke through. There were also the 10 divine halls of the Darkstar race. If they had used medium-quality god artifacts as divine halls beforehand and cast down powerful formations like the ones in the royal capital to trap Jianqin before the Darkstar Emperor attacked him, Jianqin would have been in danger as well. Chapter 2948. Jianqin fell silent. Although he had already noticed that the Darkstar race was actually no different from prisoners in the Darkstar world, it felt completely different when it came from the Darkstar Emperor himself. He understood that whether it was the Darkstar race sacrificing Sacred Feather for the ritual, or the destruction he had caused within the Darkstar race, or even the destruction of over 20 main cities in a row, none of this could be considered wrong. The Dark Star race had sacrificed you only to increase the success rate of the ritual so that they could lead their entire race to break free from their prison. From the standpoint of the Dark Star race, the Dark Star Emperor's actions were not wrong at all. Instead, they were meritorious. He had made a great contribution to the race. Genshin, on the other hand, had destroyed the ritual in order to save Siyu. When he was attacked by the Dark Star race's unparalleled curse, he destroyed more than 20 of their main cities in order to save his own life. He used that to destroy the unparalleled curse of the Dark Star race, and no one could find any fault with that. There was no absolute right or wrong in all of this. There was only a cruel law of survival where strength reigned supreme. The strong preyed on the weak. At this moment, the Dark Star Emperor let out a long sigh. He said, "Cultivator from the outside world, you've saved the divine beast you wanted to save. You've killed so many of our people, and you've even destroyed the Emperor's body. Our Dark Star race has already paid a heavy price. Now that we've fought to this point, I'm sure your hatred has been appeased. Why don't you end your grievances with our Dark Star race here?" The Dark Star Emperor finally gave in. Now that he had lost his body and only his soul remained, there was nothing he could do to Genshin. Even if he wanted to continue fighting, he did not have the ability to do so. As a result, he could not do so. As such, he could only ask for peace. Of course, the most important reason was that he had truly begun to fear Genshin. His battle prowess was great, his body was unrivaled, and his recovery was monstrous. Moreover, the energy within him was endless. Having an enemy like that was definitely the greatest nightmare of the Dark Star race. The Dark Star Emperor's space ring had already fallen into Genshin's hands. Genshin played around with the space ring and said, "Your Dark Star race no longer has any power that can stand up to me right now. Dark Star Emperor, you're telling me that you want me to let you go when I have the upper hand and rule the world. Aren't you a little too scheming?" After pausing for a moment, Genshin continued, "Of course, it's not impossible for me to stop here, but your Dark Star race has to agree to a few conditions." "What conditions?" the Dark Star Emperor asked. "I need high-quality divine king grass, ancestral ground." Genshin listed out a large pile of precious materials before looking at the Dark Star Emperor with shining eyes. "I want all of your Dark Star races. Stockpile." "Sure. My race can't use these things, but they'll be of great value in the hands of you cultivators from the outside world. The Emperor can agree to give you all of them." The Dark Star Emperor agreed without any hesitation at all. "The bone of a grand exalt of the wood spirit race, the secret scripture of supreme curses, and the precious items you've been keeping. I want all of them." Genshin demanded an exorbitant price. The Dark Star race was already meat on the chopping block anyway, so he naturally would not hold back. Of course, he was also very tempted by these items. At the very least, he understood that the Dark Star race possessed a few items that could even tempt grand primes of the Saints' world. They were either precious materials or precious treasures. All in all, they were rare. "Even if I give you the secret scripture of supreme curses, you won't be able to use it because it's a special secret technique that only our Dark Star race can use. When we cast the supreme incantation, we need the power of the bloodline and the power of the soul of the Dark Star race. Only the people of the Dark Star race can condense everyone's will into one through the supreme incantation. As for the bone of a grand exalt of the wood spirit race, the Emperor will obviously give it to you if you're willing to hand over the divine beast and let our grand ceremony succeed. However, our grand ceremony has failed, so even if the Emperor wants to give you the bone of a grand exalt of the wood spirit race, he won't be able to," said the Dark Star Emperor. Genshin frowned. "What do you mean?" "Do you see the bronze lamp? The bronze lamp contains its own space. The bone of the grand exalt of the wood spirit clan you want is placed in there. If you want to open the space, you can only do that when I become a chaotic prime. It's not just the bone of the grand exalt of the wood spirit clan. There are also the supreme treasures you mentioned, as well as some important items left behind by our ancestors. They're all in the bronze lamp. I can't take anything out of the lamp unless I'm a chaotic prime, said Jianqin. What's in the bronze lamp? Jianqin was very reluctant to accept this, but he could sense that the Dark Star Emperor did not seem to be lying. The mist around the bronze lamp immediately churned, and an extremely thin crack appeared. Immediately, several different presences leaked out, giving off a sense of desolation and age. A few items immediately appeared before Jianqin. They were like projections, allowing him to see them clearly. They were a rib, a spine, half a heart, and a round bronze platform. His ribs, spine, and half of his heart all exuded an indescribably dense aura of life. This was especially true for that half of his heart. The life force contained within it could only be described as terrifying. It even had the laws of life evolving within it. Don't tell me the rib, spine, and heart all belonged to the Grand Exalt of the Wood Spirit race. Jianqin's heart churned. Grand Exalts were supreme existences. In the legends, Grand Exalts represented the laws of the world and the order of the world. They were true sovereigns of a world. Not only did he see the complete spine of a Grand Exalt, but he even saw half a heart. He did not dare to imagine just how heavily injured the Grand Exalt of the Wood Spirit had been in the past. Afterwards, when his gaze landed on the fourth item, the round, bronze platform, he was shocked again. This was because he could sense a power that was completely similar to the bronze lamp from the tiny platform. He immediately confirmed that the platform was connected to the bronze lamp in some way. Is the platform part of the bronze lamp? Jianqin's heart shivered. He studied the bronze lamp closely, but he could not see any signs of damage. No matter how he looked at it, the bronze lamp seemed to be in perfect condition. However, he also felt like it would be even more perfect if the bronze lamp was placed on the platform. That should be it. The platform and the bronze lamp should be a single entity. They've just been split into two by a great force. Just the bronze lamp alone is a high-quality god artifact. If the bronze lamp and the platform fuse back together, what level of god artifact would they be? Jianqin was secretly shocked. High-quality god artifacts were extremely rare even in the Saints' world. Some Grand Primes did not even possess one. Above the high-grade divine artifacts were the extreme-grade divine artifacts. Even with the entire Saints' world in perspective, there were only a handful of supreme-quality god artifacts. Chapter 2949. Soon, the four items that had appeared from the bronze lamp disappeared, and the bronze lamp returned to its original appearance. However, Jianqin struggled to remain calm. His heart continued to beat at an extraordinary rate. A Grand Exalt's rib, a Grand Exalt's spine, and even half a Grand Exalt's heart. If these three items ended up in the Saints' world, it would definitely shake up the entire Saints' world. Countless Grand Primes would fight to the death over them. Jianqin was clearly very tempted by such a great temptation. He even became greedy. Jianqin sucked in a deep breath and forcefully suppressed his excitement. He said, "There should be far more items in the bronze lamp, right?" The Dark Star Emperor glanced at Jianqin deeply in his soul form and said calmly, "That's right. There are indeed far more items in the space within the bronze lamp than just these four items. Aside from these four items, there are some extremely precious materials as well as some records left behind by our ancestors. As these rare materials don't possess powerful presences, they can't be conjured at all. As for the records left behind by our ancestors, they're just some secret techniques and cultivation methods. Only our Dark Star race can practice them. Even if outsiders obtain them, they'll be useless, unless they change to our cultivation method and absorb the power of spiritual immortals." The light in Jianqin's eyes flickered as he stared at the Dark Star Emperor. He questioned, "Dark Star Emperor, you said that you need the cultivation of a chaotic prime to open the space within the bronze lamp. How can I believe you?" "Humph. The Emperor has always been a man of his word among the Dark Star race. He has always acted in an upright manner. He has never done anything like you cultivators of the outside world. Moreover, you've disguised yourself as Kuan Tian and infiltrated our race for quite some time now, so you must know something about the Emperor. The Emperor can only guarantee you that the Emperor is not lying at all. The Darkstar Emperor swore. He was upright and righteous. Moreover, the items from the Grand Exalt of the Wood Spirit clan are supreme treasures that can drive people crazy in the eyes of you cultivators of the outside world, but they're completely useless to our race. This is because our race has already protected these items for countless years. Even before the spirit's world was destroyed, these items were already in our hands. Now, the spirit's world has already been destroyed for who knows how many years, yet these items that are supreme treasures in your eyes are still the same as before. They can only lie in the miniature world within the bronze lamp. Let's not talk about the fact that we can't use these items, but even if we could use them, we wouldn't care about them. This is because the entire race of the Darkstar race only has one great wish, which is to break out of this prison, break free from this world, and take a look at the outside world. For this goal, our race has already worked hard for countless years. Even now, in my era, we still haven't given up. The Darkstar Emperor looked at Genshin openly and continued. Cultivator of the outside world, the Emperor has said so much just so that you understand that everything the Emperor has said is completely true. There's nothing false about it at all. Moreover, the Emperor would never stoop to scheming. The Darkstar Emperor paused before continuing. Of course, if you change your mind right now and agree to trade with the Divine Beast, the Emperor can promise you that once our grand ritual succeeds, the Emperor will give you all the materials in the bronze lamp, including the 3 items from the Grand Exalt of the Wood Spirit clan. There's no need to mention that again. No matter how many precious items your race has, even if you have the Grand Exalt's legacy, it's impossible for you to trade for Siyu from the Emperor. Jianshin directly dispelled the Darkstar Emperor's thoughts. After a moment of thought, he continued, just the specialties of your race won't be enough to trade for the lives of your entire race. Since you can't take out a single bone from the Grand Exalt of the Wood Spirit clan, why don't you just use the essence blood of the Grand Exalt of your race instead? You want the essence blood of a Grand Exalt? The Darkstar Emperor's eyes narrowed. That's right. Not only has your race given birth to a Grand Exalt before, but you've also fought against the Grand Exalt of the Wood Spirit clan. You must have quite a lot of the essence blood of the Grand Exalt of the Wood Spirit clan. If you want to use the essence blood of a Grand Exalt of the Wood Spirit clan to replace a single bone, how much essence blood of a Grand Exalt do you have? Genshin asked. The Darkstar Emperor pondered for a moment before saying, we don't have the essence blood of a Grand Exalt of the Wood Spirit clan. Even if we do, it's hidden in half of our hearts. We can't take it out at all. However, we do have some essence blood of our ancestors, but there's not much left. The light in Genshin's eyes shone brightly. Even his breathing became rather rushed. I want 10 droplets of essence blood of a Grand Exalt. Give me 10 droplets of essence blood of a Grand Exalt, and my enmity with your race will be written off. It's not just me, but Siyu as well. I'll persuade him not to seek revenge on your race. Otherwise, with Siyu's divine beast bloodline and talent, coupled with my nurturing, his strength will definitely skyrocket in a short amount of time. He'll definitely bring disaster to your race in the next 1,000 years. Even you, the Darkstar Emperor, might not be Siyu's opponent. Darkstar Emperor, what do you think of this deal? The Darkstar Emperor's face did not change at all. Instead, he let out a long sigh and said, Cultivator of the outside world, don't always threaten me, the Emperor, with the annihilation of our race. If we can't break out of the prison of this world and continue living like this, it'll only be torture for our race. Death might be a form of release. I admit that you do indeed have the ability to wipe out the Darkstar race. However, when you do, you won't be able to live either. At that time, the Emperor will use the final trump card left behind by our ancestors without any hesitation at all, which is to blow up the entire Dark Star world so that all the creatures in the world, including everything in the two-world mountain, will be reduced to ashes. This world is condensed from a space beast that has reached the 9th heavenly layer of Grand Prime, and it is filled with the power of 2 grand exalts. Once the Emperor blows up the world, the power will be so great that even high-quality god artifacts will shatter. If that really happens, you won't be able to survive even if you hide in the Dark Star Divine Hall. At that time, this Emperor's primordial spirit will survive, but you will be completely destroyed in both body and soul. However, if the world blows up, all the clansmen in the Dark Star world will die apart from the Emperor. As a result, the Emperor really isn't willing to use this trump card unless we're truly on the brink of annihilation. The Dark Star Emperor's eyes shone brightly. He said to Jianchen extremely seriously, "As a result, the Emperor hopes that you will stop before you go too far. Leaving the Dark Star clansmen alive is giving the Emperor hope. At the same time, it'll form a bond with the Emperor so that the Emperor won't abandon everything in despair and do something crazy." Jianchen's expression changed. "In other words, your Dark Star race can actually break out of this cage at any time?" "That is indeed the case, but so what? If we break out of the cage, we'll lose all our clansmen. If we really do that, we'll be condemned by the entire race. How will we be able to face our ancestors in the future?" The Dark Star Emperor's face was filled with sorrow and deep helplessness. Jianchen said nothing. He stared at the Dark Star Emperor silently. He could not help but admit that the Dark Star Emperor was a qualified leader. He clearly possessed the ability to break out of the cage, but he was willing to be trapped with his clansmen. He would never betray his clansmen. Even though he had been trapped for countless years, his will had not wavered at all. Just this kind of dedication was enough to be called great. If something like this happened in the Saints' world, Jianchen believed that most people, including some grand primes who led sects, would make the other choice without any hesitation at all. This was because many people's beliefs had changed under the brutal environment of the Saints' world. They would not let some weaklings who were useless to them become shackles that bound them. Chapter 2950. Jianchen's breathing suddenly stopped when he heard the Dark Star Emperor's final words. Even his heart rapidly contracted before beating at an unprecedented rate. "What promise?" Jianchen immediately blurted out. He was unable to hide his excitement. At that moment, he no longer cared about the Dark Star Emperor seeing through his desire for the essence blood of grand exalts because he was unable to conceal his excitement. The 10 droplets of essence blood could undo the seal on the primeval divine hall and free it so that it could roam freely in the world. Moreover, he had reached an agreement with the artifact spirit of the primeval divine hall in the past. Once he freed the primeval divine hall, the primeval divine hall would recognize him as its master and be under his control. This was a peak god artifact on the same level as the Inata Tower, the Heavenly Palace of Bishing, and the Azulite swords. They were all treasures of grand exalts in the past, so their rarity and value went without saying. Most importantly, the primeval divine hall was an undamaged peak god artifact. Unlike the Inata Tower, the Azulite swords, and the Tower of Radiance of the Radiant Saint Hall, they had all suffered unimaginable damage in the past, preventing them from unleashing their former might. Once he obtained the primeval divine hall, he would be able to unleash many of its wondrous uses effortlessly through the assistance of the artifact spirit. Even though he was nowhere close to being able to unleash all of the primeval divine hall's power with his current strength, even 1/100th of its power was not to be underestimated. As a result, the 10 droplets of essence blood of grand exalts held far too much significance to Jianchen. "Emperor, I need your promise. Once you possess the ability to free our race, you must do everything you can to help us break free. Moreover, when our race encounters danger in the future, you must do everything you can to help us survive." The Dark Star Emperor's gaze became extremely sharp, as if he wanted to see through Jianchen's eyes and into the depths of his heart. He said firmly, There is no time limit to this promise. It will take effect the moment we give you the 10 droplets of essence blood. As long as you're still alive, you must keep this promise. Are you that confident in me? Are you so sure that I will grow to be able to help your clan one day? Jinshin's eyes flickered. He did not let the benefits go to his head. He weighed the pros and cons in his mind. To be able to reach such astonishing heights at such a young age, your future achievements are bound to be limitless. Therefore, the Emperor is willing to place this bet on you. Although this bet is risky, you're the only person who has the right to make us bet so heavily over all these years. The Dark Star Emperor had a solemn look on his face. Clearly, he had struggled internally before making this decision. All right, I can promise you that once I have the ability in the future, I will definitely do everything I can to help your clan break free. At the same time, if your clan encounters any life-threatening dangers in the Saints' world in the future, I will do everything I can to help you survive. However, there has to be a condition, which is that everything has to be within my abilities. I won't throw away my life for nothing for 10 droplets of essence blood, Genshin said. All right, that's no problem. However, you have to swear on your ways. Genshin and the Dark Star Emperor reached an agreement very soon. During that time, the Hall Masters and Vice Hall Masters of the 10 Divine Halls also stood forward to raise objections, but they were all forcefully suppressed by the Dark Star Emperor. The Dark Star Emperor was a supreme existence in the Dark Star clan. If he insisted on doing what he wanted, no one could stop him, even if he had lost his body. Afterwards, Genshin immediately swore on his ways solemnly. When can you give me the 10 droplets of essence blood from Grand Exalts? The essence blood of Grand Exalts is stored in the altar. If you want to take it out, you need to reopen the altar. And reopening the altar requires the power of the 36 cities, the Dark Star Emperor said slowly. He glanced at Genshin deeply and continued. You've already destroyed 25 of the 36 cities. Only 11 cities remain intact. These 11 cities are nowhere near enough to reopen the altar. Apart from the 36 main cities, our race has many towns and villages of various sizes. We can deploy people from the towns and villages to the 36 main cities. However, the clansmen who are active in the towns and villages are a level weaker than the 36 main cities. They don't meet the requirements. Genshin frowned. In other words, I can't take out the essence blood of Grand Exalts. It's not that we can't take it out, but we need your assistance. Our race has high-quality divine king grass. With our race's abilities, we can't refine the divine king grass into pills, but you cultivators of the outside world can. If you can refine the divine king grass into pills and provide them to our race, it'll be able to quickly replenish the strength of the 36 cities. Once the 36 cities have recovered their vitality, opening the altar won't be difficult, said the Dark Star Emperor. Then I'll need all of the high-quality divine king grass. Genshin sighed inside. He had personally witnessed how the Dark Star race had opened the altar, so he knew that the Dark Star Emperor was telling the truth. Opening the altar did require the power of the 36 cities. In the end, Genshin reached a compromise with the Dark Star race through a series of negotiations. Both sides stopped fighting, and Genshin headed to the royal capital of the Dark Star race. He was prepared to receive the various resources of the Dark Star race. At the same time, a figure carefully concealed his presence in the depths of Two World Mountain as he rapidly moved through the misty forest. His clothes were in tatters, and he was covered in wounds. He was covered in blood, clearly quite heavily injured. This figure was the Holy Son of the 5-Point Sect, one of the peak sects on the Star Brilliance Plane. He was the Holy Son Wu Hua. At this moment, the Holy Son Wu Hua was traversing Two World Mountain. Traversing Two World Mountain was an almost impossible task for all cultivators from the outside world. It was a challenge of life and death. Even those with extraordinary battle prowess would basically die if they tried to traverse Two World Mountain alone. The The Holy Sun Wu Hua's battle prowess could not be said to be extraordinary, but his combination of the laws of space and the laws of time allowed him to unleash various mysteries. In the end, he possessed extraordinary life-saving abilities within Two-World Mountain, despite not being extraordinary in battle prowess. The Holy Sun Wu Hua's face had already become pale, and he looked haggard. He held a supreme grade divine crystal in his hand, absorbing its energy to recover as he hurried along. Behind him, beastly roars rang out. Many life-sucking beasts were pursuing him, and almost all of them were at the divine king level. The Holy Sun Wu Hua did not dare to stop at all. Even though he was already exhausted, he could only bite the tip of his tongue and force himself to flee at full speed. His tongue had already been bitten to a bloody pulp. Chapter 2951. As soon as he entered the barrier, Saint Sun Wu Hua looked up and saw the passage between the two worlds hanging in the air 100 miles away. His tense nerves finally relaxed completely at that moment. With a bang, Saint Sun Wu Hua closed his eyes and fainted on the ground. In the past few days, he had traveled across the Two-World Mountain. He had experienced many bitter battles. When he was escaping the pursuit of the life-sucking beast, he was already exhausted. If it weren't for his strong will, he probably would have collapsed in the Two-World Mountain long ago. Now that he had relaxed, he immediately fainted. After 3 whole days, Saint Sun Wu Hua slowly woke up. He didn't have the strength to stand up. When he was fighting the life-sucking beast, his life force had been largely devoured. Coupled with the injuries on his body, he was currently in an extremely weak state. He slowly raised his hand and used all his strength to take out a divine hull. After shrinking the divine hull to a normal size and placing it on the ground, he collapsed to the ground again as if he had collapsed. His eyes were dim and lifeless. Suddenly, the door of the divine hull opened, and several hundred martial artists of the holy world walked out. When they saw the huge barrier that enveloped the area and the passage between the two worlds hanging in the sky in the distance, all of them cheered uncontrollably. We're out, we're finally out of the Two-World Mountain. Saint Sun Wu Hua is too powerful. He actually crossed the Two-World Mountain alone. Saint Sun Wu Hua is too amazing. He crossed the Two-World Mountain alone. I'm afraid even the young master of the Wolf Clan, who obtained the Grand Exalt's inheritance, can't do that. In the entire Holy World, the number one person under 1,000 years old is none other than Saint Sun Wu Hua. Saint Sun Wu Hua, I will remember your kindness in saving my life. If you need me in the future, please do not hesitate to ask. The several hundred martial artists of the outside world who walked out of the divine hall all praised him. They were all grateful to Saint Sun Wu Hua. Some of the women even showed undisguised admiration and adoration. Oh no, Saint Sun Wu Hua is injured. Everyone come here. With a cry, everyone noticed Saint Sun Wu Hua, who was in an extremely bad state. They all gathered together and took out all kinds of healing pills from their space rings, without holding back. No need, these don't have much effect on me. Quick, take me out. Saint Sun Wu Hua said weakly. Saint Sun Wu Hua's injuries are very serious. At the very least, he needs a divine-level medicinal pill to help. The level of our medicinal pills is too low and won't be of much use. Let's go. Let's leave this place quickly and ask the elders in the outside world to treat him. The Dark Star Realm has encountered an unprecedented change. We must inform our elders about this as soon as possible. Immediately, everyone supported Saint Sun Wu Hua as they entered the passage between the two worlds. The ruins of the sacred immortal world, the Dark Star continent, Dark Star City. The huge energy vortex that formed the passageway between the two worlds hovered silently above Dark Star City. Many divine halls were scattered around the energy vortex, radiating with the tremendous presence of god artifacts. Those floating palaces were all mid-quality divine artifacts, different from the damaged, mid-quality divine artifacts in the Dark Star Realm. The mid-quality divine artifacts that appeared in the floating palaces were all completely undamaged. A tale of divine blood soil in exchange for a caddy of profound ice divine iron. I wonder what your Tianhe clan has decided? A voice echoed outside the divine hall of the Tianhe clan, causing the space to tremble. Zhanyin, don't be delusional. Even if our Tianhe clan is in dire need of divine blood soil, we definitely won't use a caddy of profound ice divine iron to exchange for a tale of divine blood soil. A tale of divine blood soil is only worth half a tale of profound ice divine iron at most. An aged voice rang out from within the Tianhe clan. There was uncontrollable anger in his voice. He Qianqi, why are you so stubborn? Your Tianhe clan has already lost its foundation in the realm of the fallen beast. In the future, it will be impossible for you to obtain divine blood soil from the realm of the fallen beast. Moreover, your Tianhe clan has no use for the profound ice divine iron right now. Why don't you exchange it with our Tianhe sect and do us a favor? In the future, if our Tianhe sect obtains divine blood soil from the realm of the fallen beast, we will take out a portion to exchange with your Tianhe clan. Within the divine hall of the Tianhe sect, Zhan Yun, one of the 6 great heaven-rank supreme elders of the Tianhe sect, sat cross-legged in the divine hall. He had a sly smile on his face as he conversed with a supreme elder of the Tianhe clan. Zhan Yun did not hide his voice, so all the organizations could hear him. The reason why he had made such a big fuss was just to warn the other peak organizations present. He wanted to tell everyone that the profound ice divine iron of the Tianhe clan had already been decided by the Tianhe sect. At the same time, it was also a warning to the other organizations not to provide the divine blood soil to the Tianhe clan. Even though there were a few peak organizations that were even more powerful than the Tianhe sect present, they did not fear any threat from the Tianhe sect. However, Zhan Yin did not plan on cowering in front of these organizations. His objective was only to deter the organizations that feared the Tianhe sect. That way, the Tianhe clan's channels to obtain the divine blood soil would naturally decrease. Grand Elder, the Sky sect has gone too far. They actually put forward such an unreasonable request. This is clearly looting a burning house. Within the Sky Crane Palace, He Qianchan was filled with righteous indignation as she complained to a white-robed elder beside her. The old man was He Qianqi, a chaotic prime great elder of the Tianhe clan. He Qianqi let out a long sigh and said, "That person from the Tianhe sect can break through to the 7th heavenly layer at any time. Once that happens, the Tianhe sect's status will be completely different. It's best if we hold back as much as possible before the Tianhe sect's arrogance. The profound ice divine iron is one of the materials for forging high-quality god artifacts. It's extremely valuable, yet the Tianhe sect actually wants to exchange half a kilogram of profound ice divine iron for just this bit of divine blood soil. They're really greedy." Hao Jia's direct disciple, Haoran, shook his head in disdain. One of the ancestors of the Tianhe sect has already reached the 2nd heavenly layer of Grand Prime, but he still doesn't have a suitable high-quality god artifact. He's currently searching for materials to forge one himself. The profound ice divine iron of the Tianhe clan happens to be one of the main materials he needs. As a result, the Tianhe sect will never give up on the profound ice divine iron. They want to obtain it for the smallest price. Another old man sat beside Haoran. He looked in the direction of the Tianhe clan and said, "However, the Tianhe clan of the Ice Pole Plain is not to be trifled with." After a moment of silence, Haoran said, "Great Elder, the trials in the world of the fallen beast can no longer continue. Hao Chan and I are already prepared to return to the clan." Chapter 2952. Even if something happens, the organizations that remain in the 100 Saint City will still be protected by the 5th Hall Master. With the 5th Hall Master's power, the 100 Saint City will definitely be fine, said Haoran. Hao Wanqing gently shook his head and said, "Lil Ran, you have to remember that no matter when, you can't easily believe a person's promise. Unless you swear in the name of the Great Tao, You can't trust anyone. Hao Wanqing paused when he reached there. Even if you swear on your own path, you still can't trust them so easily. After all, some people walk different paths. Their hearts of Tao might not necessarily bind them. Great Elder, I obviously understand the concept of how vicious people are. However, the Dark Star race is different from the Saints' world. The promises of the Dark Star race can still be trusted somewhat, let alone the fact that they're a Hall Master, Hao Ran said indifferently. Hao Wanqing took out a disc and placed it on the table. He stared at the gem in the center of the disc and said, "This disc was left to our Hao Jia by the master of the myriad bone building. It only has a single function, which is to observe the situation of the 100 Saints city through the gem on the disc. An enormous amount of energy is accumulated in the 100 Saints city. As for this compass, it is able to resonate with the energy within the 100 Saints city. When the energy within the 100 Saints city is filled with energy, the gem in the middle of the compass will blossom with light. When the energy within the 100 Saints city is exhausted and weakened, the glow of the gem will also weaken. Through this method, we are able to indirectly know the situation of the 100 Saints city in the Dark Star realm. Ever since our Hao family obtained this compass for countless years, the gem in the middle of the compass has always been dazzling. Even when the 100 Saints city was occupied by the Dark Star race not long ago, the gem in this compass is still extremely bright. But now, look at the gem on the disc. What do you think?" Hao Ran looked at the gem in the center, and his eyes immediately narrowed. The gem has dimmed. It has lost its luster. That's right. The gem has lost all of its luster. This is the first time something like this has happened since our Hao Jia obtained the disc. Do you know what this means? Hao Wanqing's voice became rather stern. It means that all the energy in the 100 Saints city has been drained. But how is this possible? Hao Ran's mind was greatly shaken, and his face was full of disbelief. "Supreme Elder, is this compass's prediction accurate? Could it be that the compass made a mistake? After all, the Myriad Bone Guild is an assassin organization. The things that the Myriad Bone Guild's master takes out might not be accurate." Hao Wanqing revealed a meaningful smile and said, "Little Ran, do you know who refined the 100 Saints city back then? Wasn't it refined by over 100 top forces?" Hao Ran revealed a look of surprise. Hao Wanqing chuckled and shook his head. "Yes and no. Over 100 top-tier factions participated in the forging process. Some contributed resources, while others contributed manpower. It took many years and many improvements before the assembly was successfully completed. After all, gathering so many supreme quality saint artifacts together to form a god artifact requires a great deal of attention. Every aspect needs to be taken into account. The difficulty is far greater than you can imagine. However, they only played a supporting role in the process of refining the 100 Saints city. The real refiner should be the Myriad Bone Guild's master. The Myriad Bone Guild's master also has extremely profound attainments in the way of refining and the way of formations. You should understand now, this compass and the 100 Saints city can be said to have the same origin. Supreme Elder, since such an unforeseen event has occurred in the 100 Saints city, why is the Supreme Elder of the Sky Sect still unaware of the situation? Moreover, it's not just the Sky Sect. I found that even the other factions are the same." Hao Ran looked puzzled. "Do you think that everyone has this kind of compass? As far as I know, there are only 3 or 4 of these compasses in total. Our Hao Jia received special care from the Myriad Bone Guild's master because of the relationship with the Yen ancestor and was given a compass," Hao Wanqing said. Hao Wanqing said. His expression was involuntarily filled with respect when the Yen ancestor was mentioned. There was also a sense of pride mixed within. "Oh, right. Hao Ran, do you know what fortuitous encounter the young master of the Ashwolf clan, Jin Hong, obtained in the world of the fallen beast? Not only did Jin Hong leave the world of the fallen beast early, but the ancestor of the Ashwolf clan took him away from the spirit's world in a hurry as soon as he emerged. Haran shook his head to express that he did not know. Jin Hong's sudden departure was a mystery to the entire Hundred Saints city. Hao Wanqing still wanted to say something, but his face suddenly changed. He immediately stood up. Someone has emerged from the world of the fallen beast. Let's go take a look. As soon as Hao Wanqing's voice faded, a few figures began to emerge from the huge energy vortex at the entrance of the passageway. They were shuttling through the passageway and were sent out by the power of the passageway. There were quite a lot of people in the group, several hundred in total. Most of them were gods or overgods. Divine King were as rare as phoenix feathers. As soon as they emerged, many primordial realm experts appeared near the entrance of the tunnel, ranging from chaotic primes to infinite primes. There were even many divine king present. The peak organizations that had founded the Hundred Saint City only made up a third of the primordial realm experts. Even more organizations had not joined the Hundred Saint City. Immediately, the several hundred people who had emerged from the tunnel became the center of attention. All the primordial realm experts gathered there asked about the situation in the world of the fallen beast. We don't know what happened either. The people of the Dark Star race suddenly began to capture us. In order to protect me, my senior brothers and sisters fled to Two World Mountain, but they were all injured and captured by the experts of the Dark Star race. The Dark Star race has gone mad. They've completely gone mad. They've already declared war on us. Everyone has been captured by the Dark Star race. If it weren't for the fact that I had a profound escape technique that allowed me to hide in Two World Mountain, I would not have been able to escape either. All the primordial realm experts gathered their frown when they heard the various discussions. They did not obtain any information from these people. Apart from knowing that many people had been captured, they knew nothing else. They had already learned about the great ceremony that the Dark Star race had prepared long ago. Seniors, we all hid in Two World Mountain long ago, so we have no idea what happened to the Dark Star race. However, the Wuhua Saint is powerful, and he was the last one to escape into Two World Mountain. He should know more than all of us. An overgod said politely. Chapter 2953. Saint Wuhua did indeed know quite a lot about what had happened in the Dark Star world recently. He constantly moved through the various regions of the Dark Star race, using the wonders of the laws of space and the laws of time to avoid danger time and time again. He managed to obtain quite a lot of important information. The Dark Star race is conducting a great ceremony. All the cultivators from the outside world locked up in the 36 main cities have become sacrifices. Their life force and cultivation have been sucked away. Even the Hundred Saint City is not spared. The Hundred Saint City suddenly erupted with an attack on par with chaotic primes, crossing the distance of space to attack the imperial city of the Dark Star race. The fifth Hall Master suddenly turned traitor, destroying the ceremony and stealing the divine beast used for the sacrifice. He engaged in an intense battle with the Dark Star Emperor and the 10 Hall Masters in the imperial city. With Saint Wu Hua's explanation, the nearby large organizations finally had a basic understanding of the Dark Star race's situation. Everyone's expression became extremely ugly. Impossible. How can the Hundred Saints City unleash an attack on par with chaotic primes? And why would they attack the imperial city of the Dark Star race proactively? An organization that belonged to the Hundred Saints City called out in disbelief. What's the situation with the Hundred Saints City right now? Another primordial realm expert from the Hundred Saints City growled. Suddenly, the expression of a chaotic prime changed drastically. He immediately cried out, "Oh no, our clan is protected by the 5th Hall Master in the world of the fallen beast, and we even paid a large sum of divine crystals for that. Now that the 5th Hall Master has betrayed us, won't our Hundred Saints City?" The chaotic prime did not finish his sentence, but the expressions of all the people from the Peak clans who had paid a large sum of divine crystals changed when they heard what he said. Seniors, I've also discovered an extremely shocking piece of news in the Dark Star world. The leader of the Fifth Hall is not actually a member of the Dark Star race. Instead, he's a cultivator from the Saints' world in disguise. Saint Child Wu Hua continued weakly. However, his words were like a thunderclap. When they reached everyone's ears, all the chaotic primes' heads began to ring. What? The Fifth Hall Master is from the Saints' world. Is this true? Junior, you have to understand the consequences of deceiving us. Not to mention you're only a disciple of the 5-Point Sect. Even if your 5-Point Sect's ancestor, Venerable Huayan, was here, he wouldn't dare play tricks on us. Preposterous, preposterous. If the Fifth Hall Master really is a person from the Saints' world in disguise, who did all of us pay such a huge sum of divine crystals to? Who's the one with the guts to actually deceive us? Back then, in order to gather this sum of divine crystals, we practically ran around the entire sacred immortal world, borrowing a little here and there before we managed to gather it with great difficulty. Who would have thought that all of us would be running around to serve a brat? How laughable, how laughable. In the camp of the 100 Saint Cities, all the grand elders of the 50 top clans who had paid a large sum of divine gems were livid with anger. If Saint Wu Hua's information was true, it meant that the dozens of top forces had all been fooled by someone. They were mighty peak organizations, existences that reigned over an entire region of the Saints' world. Just how great was their status? Yet they had been played for a fool. This was a great humiliation to them. God damn it. Our Heavenly Thunder Clan sent in 30 crystals that contained the laws of time. In order to obtain these crystals, the ancestors of our Heavenly Thunder Clan went as far as to personally come out. A great elder of the Heavenly Thunder Clan near the tunnel between the two worlds said through gritted teeth with a pale face, "Back then, in order to satisfy the Fifth Hall Master's conditions, the two ancestors of our Jade Pill sect personally emerged from seclusion. They even invited many supreme figures to create new pill recipes, paying a great price to refine pills that met the Fifth Hall Master's conditions. A great elder of the Jade Pill sect had already become the color of a pig's liver. His entire body trembled gently, and his eyes were about to spit fire. In the vicinity, the major forces that had not joined the 100 Saint Cities camp did not utter a word. And in the 100 Saint Cities camp, the dozens of top forces that had not received the protection of the Fifth Hall's Hallmaster and had been forcibly expelled from the 100 Saint Cities camp also did not say a word. They all looked at the Grand Elders who represented the 52 forces in the square, and their expressions became extremely strange, filled with schadenfreude. Many people were forcefully suppressing their laughter. If Saint Wu Hua was telling the truth and the Fifth Hall Master really was a junior from the outside world in disguise, this person would have really broken through the heavens. He had actually played around with so many peak organizations. This was especially true for the Jade Pill sect and the Heavenly Thunder Clan, who had spent a lot of effort on this matter. No one dared to imagine how high the anger of these two clans would reach. The Heavenly Crane clans He-Chan-Chan, Hao Jias, Hao Ran, Hao Chen, the Emperor Lotus Sword sect's Ping Yisheng, the Sun family Sun Ji, and the other several tens of geniuses that were driven out of the Dark Star realm. All of them had their eyes wide open. Their mouths were so wide open that even an egg could be stuffed in. All of them were dumbstruck. Was the Fifth Palace Master an outsider in disguise? How was this possible? He could heavily injure a fourth heavenly layer infinite prime with a flip of his hand. How could he be a cultivator from the outside world? After all, those that were able to enter the Dark Star realm were all below 1,000 years old. Who could reach such heights within 1,000 years? I don't care if the Fifth Hall Master is a member of the Dark Star realm or someone from our Saints' world. I just want to know whether a Yang Yutian independent cultivator is here or not. He killed a member of our Chu family, so our Chu family will never spare him. A person from the Chu family said coldly among the primordial realm experts. He was filled with killing intent. He was a great elder of the Chu family, a chaotic prime. He possessed great status in the Chu family, only second to grand primes. The disciples of the Chu family, who entered the world of the fallen beast this time, were under his protection. This Yang Yutian also killed a genius disciple of our Gong family. Gong Rui's of our Gong family had reached Divine King after cultivating for just over 800 years. He was the most outstanding disciple of our Gong family in the past several 100,000 years. It was extremely likely that he would become the new great elder of our Gong family. Yet he died in the world of the fallen beast just like that. I don't care if this person called Yang Yutian is a real independent cultivator or a fake independent cultivator. Our Gong family will crush his bones and scatter his ashes. A great elder of the Gong family stood forward. His eyes were cold and filled with hatred. After the Chu family and the Gong family, primordial realm experts from the Jade sect, Zhao family, and Songcheng clan all stood forward and personally called out Yang Yutian. This was because what happened in the Dark Star realm was not as simple as the death of a young prodigy to their 5 clans. It affected their interests in the Dark Star realm as well. Chapter 2954. The great elder of the Chu family saw Saint Wu Hua's expression, and a vicious light immediately flashed through his eyes. He took a step forward and arrived before Saint Wu Hua in a single moment. His eyes became extremely piercing as the tremendous presence of a chaotic prime radiated from him, crushing down on Saint Wu Hua like a mountain. He said sternly, "Speak. Don't hide anything. Tell old man everything you know about Yang Yutian." The great elder of the Chu family clearly did not hold back against Saint Wu Hua. He gave off a strand of the pressure of a chaotic prime, forcing Saint Wu Hua to constantly bleed. "Chu Xiaoquang, you're the mighty great elder of the Chu family, and you're a chaotic prime. Yet you bully the disciples of my 5-point sect like this. Your actions are truly despicable," said Chu Xiaoquang. At this moment, an old voice that was slightly furious rang out. An old man also appeared before Saint Wu Hua. He had his back towards Saint Wu Hua as he radiated with the presence of a chaotic prime. He stood up to the great elder of the Chu family. To no surprise, the old man was a great elder of the 5-point sect. The great elder's face sank slightly. His eyes shone with a sharp light, and he said coldly, "Now, we all understand that the independent cultivator called Yang Yutian is a member of the Tianhe clan. He was closest to the Tianhe clan in the world of the fallen beast. If you want to interrogate Yang Yutian, you should go to the Tianhe clan instead of holding onto a disciple of my 5-point sect. Old man of the Tianhe clan has obviously investigated it. Yang Yutian is only an outsider recruited by the Tianhe clan. He has nothing to do with the Tianhe clan, and the Tianhe clan left the world of the fallen beast a long time ago. They have no idea what happened afterwards. Instead, it's your disciple of the 5-point sect who came out last, so he has a lot of the latest information." Chu Xiaoquang's expression was slightly stiff. He didn't dare act so arrogantly when facing the Tianhe clan, like he did when facing the 5-point sect. This was because the Tianhe clan and the 5-point sect were 2 great sections. The former ranked 3rd on the Ice Pole Plane, one of the 7 sacred planes of the Saints' World, while the latter ranked 9th on the Star Brilliance Plane. Your 5-point sect's disciple must know something. Let him tell us honestly. This Yang Yutian killed people from our 5 families. Your 5-point sect should understand the seriousness of this matter. The grand elders of the Gong family, Zhao family, Songcheng family, and Jade sect all stood up and formed a united front with the Chu family. Just the Chu clan alone was already stronger than the Huayan sect. Now, with the addition of the other 4 powers that were comparable to the Chu clan, the pressure on the grand elder of the 5-point sect immediately multiplied. Yang Yutian didn't do anything wrong. The disciples of your 5 great clans only have themselves to blame for ending up like this. You can't blame anyone else. At this moment, a discordant voice rang out. It was He Qianqian who stood beside He Qianqi. She spoke out to defend Yang Yutian. Afterwards, He Qianqian looked around and glanced past the several dozen prodigies who had been chased out of the Dark Star realm. She said, "You all know that Yang Yutian's contributions cannot go unnoticed for us to be able to walk out of the Two-World Mountain. You all personally witnessed everything that happened in the Dark Star realm, so there's no need for me to say anything more. Right now, I, He Qianqian, only want to remind you that back in the Dark Star realm, there were quite a few of you who said that you would repay Yang Yutian. Now, it's time for you to fulfill your promise." Hearing that, the eyes of the several dozen prodigies who had been chased out of the Dark Star realm all flickered with light. Some of them wanted to say something, but they were stopped by the seniors beside them. "Don't say anything, just watch. The Chu family, Gong family, Zhao family, Firmament family, and the Jade sect have joined hands. This is an extremely huge power. There's no need to offend the 5 great clans for an insignificant little person. This Yang Yutian has harmed the interests of the 5 great clans in the Dark Star realm. Don't recklessly stand out, don't bring trouble to your clans. For the time being, let's wait and see." The majority of the prodigies had received the sound transmissions from their seniors. This immediately caused those who wanted to defend Yang Yutian to become silent. "Holy Sun, tell me everything you know about Yang Yutian," the Holy Sun said. The 5-point sect's supreme elder sighed in his heart, facing the Chu family, Gong family, and the other 4 great powers. Their 5-point sect could only temporarily admit defeat. "Yes, great elder." The Holy Sun Wu Hua was filled with respect towards the great elder of the sect. After clasping his fist and bowing, he looked at the aggressive 5 clans and said politely, "Esteemed seniors, this junior does not know a lot about Yang Yutian because this junior has only met Yang Yutian once in the Dark Star realm. Moreover, this junior was invited by the 5 young masters, Chu Jie, Gong Rui's Kong Feiying, Zhou Ji, and Zhao Wenbin, to deal with Yang Yutian. This junior has also personally witnessed the battle between the 5 young masters and Yang Yutian. The 5 young masters used the formation created by the many divine king to erupt with battle prowess on par with the primordial realm. However, even when the 5 of them worked together, they failed to kill Yang Yutian in the end. We have already learnt all that from the sacrificial warriors who experienced the battle. What we want to know is whether Yang Yutian is still alive or not." Chu Xiaoquang directly interrupted the Holy Sun Wu Hua. "This junior does not know. In reality, Yang Yutian seemed to have vanished from the world after the battle. This junior has not heard anything about him at all," Holy Sun Wu Hua said carefully. Even though he was the chosen saint of the 5-point sect, he still trembled slightly when he faced a chaotic prime. The great elders of the 5 clans frowned when they heard that. Some hostility gradually appeared in their eyes. But this junior does have a great guess," the Holy Sun Wu Hua said again. Saint Sun Wu Hua opened his mouth again. However, this time he was clearly a little hesitant. The expression on his face kept changing. In the end, he gritted his teeth and said, "Junior guesses that the 5th Hall Master who betrayed the Dark Star tribe might be Yang Yutian." "WW what? WW what did you say?" The great elders of the 5 clans all became stunned when they heard that. They even began to stammer slightly. Their brains had almost short-circuited. Yang Yutian was the 5th Hall Master? That was basically a fantasy. It was just too absurd. There was nothing more absurd in the world. "What did you say? The 5th Hall Master is Yang Yutian?" The 52 organizations that had been promised protection by the 5th Hall Master basically leapt up when they offered up a large number of resources. Their expressions changed rapidly, and they immediately surrounded the Holy Sun Wu Hua. In particular, the Jade Pill Sect and Heavenly Thunder Clan, who had made great sacrifices, reacted the most violently. He Qianqian of the Tianhe clan, Ping Yisheng of the Emperor Lotus Sword Sect, and all the prodigies who had drunk and chatted with Jianqin in the 100 Saint City all widened their eyes. Their mouths formed an O shape. "He's mad. The Holy Sun Wu Hua must be mad." How can Yang Yutian be the fifth hall master? Just how powerful is the fifth hall master? He can heavily injure a fourth heavenly layer infinite prime with a raise of his hand. Yang Yutian is only a divine king. So how can he be the fifth hall master? Yang Yutian and the lord of the fifth palace are not even close. Chapter 2955. Qianqian, how much do you know about this Yang Yutian? He Qianqi of the Tianhe clan asked He Qianqian, as a great elder of the Tianhe clan, he should not have paid too much attention to a cultivator who was only a divine king. As a matter of fact, he did not even know that his clan had recruited someone like that. The first time He Qianqi had heard of Yang Yutian's name was when He Qianqian had emerged from the world of the fallen beast. The Chu family, Gong family, and Zhao family had come together and demanded that the Tianhe clan hand over Yang Yutian. It was also then that He Qianqi learned that there was actually such a talented junior in his clan. Afterwards, as He Qianqi learned more and more about Yang Yutian from He Qianqian, he gradually became interested in Yang Yutian as a great elder. He even wanted to recruit him. Now that He Qianqi heard from Saint Wu Hua that it was extremely likely that Yang Yutian was the leader of the fifth hall, he could not help but be shocked as an old monster who had lived for countless years. He could not help but re-evaluate Yang Yutian. Great elder, I don't know much about Yang Yutian because I haven't spent much time with him. Yang Yutian, it's impossible for Yang Yutian to be the leader of the fifth hall. He Qianqian's mind was in a mess. She began to replay everything she had seen with Yang Yutian, as well as how the fifth hall leader had personally come to the 100 Saints city and how brutal and ruthless he was in the divine hall. However, she failed to find any similarities in the end. Or in other words, there was nothing that could link the two of them together. If Yang Yutian really is a sixth heavenly layer infinite prime, you won't be able to discover what he's hiding from you. It's just that the requirement to enter the world of the fallen beast is to be under 1,000 years old. If Yang Yutian really has reached such heights before he's 1,000 years old, that really is terrifying, He Qianqi sighed in amazement. Even with the entire Saints world in perspective, such a genius was unprecedented. Yang Yutian is definitely not the leader of the fifth palace. Saint Child Wu Hua, if you don't have enough evidence, don't try to mislead the seniors here with your nonsense. Ping Yixing from the Emperor Lotus Sword Sect said in a low voice. If it was just Yang Yutian's identity, then so be it. Although he had offended the 5 organizations, it was not the worst. There was still a chance to salvage the situation. However, if he really did become the leader of the fifth hall, then it would truly be troublesome, because there were 52 top forces present who had paid a large sum of protection fees to the fifth hall's hall master. If they were told now that this fee was actually paid to a cultivator from the outside world, and all of them were toyed with by this cultivator from the outside world, how would these 52 top forces feel? That was not all. After accepting the protection fees, the fifth hall leader had actually betrayed the Darkstar clan, leading to the deaths of all the disciples of the 52 organizations in the 100 Saint city. This debt was not just an ordinary kind of debt. Saint Wu Hua, what evidence do you have to make such a wild guess that Yang Yutian is the leader of the fifth hall? Hao Jia's Hao Ran and Hao Qin spoke up as well. From their attitudes, they clearly stood on Yang Yutian's side. Saint Wu Hua did not become flustered at all in the face of everyone's doubts. He said, I naturally have evidence for that. Firstly, all of you have been tricked by Yang Yutian. His strength is not at the divine king realm, but a primordial realm expert. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for him to last so long under the attacks of the 5 primordial realm formations. At that time, I began to suspect that Yang Yutian's injuries from his battle against the 5 young masters of the 100 Saint city were all faked. Secondly, the leader of the fifth hall has protected the 100 Saint city. In reality, I've always been doubtful about something. I don't understand why the fifth hall leader would protect a portion of the organizations in the 100 Saint city. To him, what's the difference between protecting a portion of the organizations and having an organization in the city? He actually gave up on several 100 billion divine crystals and chased a portion of the organizations out of the Darkstar world. What benefits does that bring to the Darkstar clan? Especially later on when I heard that He Chan of the Tianhe clan proposed a price that far exceeded the amount of supreme grade divine crystals. Yet she was still rejected by the Fifth Hall Master. I became even more doubtful. The actions of the Fifth Hall Master clearly do not make sense, of course. Just that alone does not prove anything. Only afterwards, when the Darkstar clan held a great ceremony and the Fifth Hall leader betrayed them, did I finally come to a realization when the Darkstar clan announced that the Fifth Hall leader was a cultivator from the outside world. It was also at that time that I came to a conclusion that shocked even myself, which was that the Fifth Hall leader was actually Yang Yutian in disguise. As for the reason why Yang Yutian, who was disguised as the Fifth Palace Master, only accepted 50 people, his true purpose was to use this opportunity to drive out some of the powers that had a good relationship with him from the 100 Saint City. Because he already had a plan to destroy the Darkstar clan's great ceremony. At the same time, he also understood that after he took action, the 100 Saint City would definitely be implicated. Therefore, he let a portion of the organizations in the 100 Saint City leave the Darkstar world, to prevent you from suffering. Speaking up to there, Saint Sun Wu Hua's gaze swept past He Chan, Ping Yisheng, Sun Ji, Guangwan Hua, and the others, then continued, "Look carefully. You people who did not receive the protection of the Fifth Hall leader no matter what, more or less, have some friendly interactions with Yang Yutian." He Chan, Ping Yisheng, and Hao Jiao were all shocked when they heard that. All of them could not help but think through it carefully. In the end, they discovered in surprise that Saint Sun Wu Hua was right. Out of all the peak organizations in the 100 Saint City, all the people who maintained good relations with Yang Yutian were on the list of people who had been chased out of the Darkstar world. No, that's impossible. This can't be true. It's impossible for him to be the Fifth Hall leader. He Chan's mind was greatly affected. She was unable to connect the figure who had once made her extremely worried in the two-world mountain to the powerful Fifth Hall leader. This was because one of them was only a divine king, while the other was a powerful infinite prime. It was also at this moment that He Chan suddenly thought of what Jin Hong had said to her before he left in the 100 Saint City. He Yang Yutian isn't as simple as we imagined him to be. Before he left, he wanted me to tell you that the Darkstar clan has not been peaceful recently. Something huge will probably happen, so it's best if you leave the Darkstar world. Chapter 2956. Saint Sun Wu Hua did not finish speaking. He continued, "There's one more thing. It's about going through the two-world mountain. I came out through the two-world mountain, so I probably know more about the dangers of the two-world mountain than you do. The Darkstar clan killed many divine king realm life devouring beasts in the two-world mountain for the ritual. In the end, more than half of the divine king realm life devouring beasts in the two-world mountain were lost. As a result, many cultivators from the outside world found it extremely difficult to find a single divine king realm life devouring beast when they entered the two-world mountain. As for me, I'm alone. I've grasped the laws of time and the laws of space. Although I'm not very good at fighting, there aren't many people in the divine king realm who can compare to me when it comes to escaping. However, in the end, I chose to go through the two-world mountain when my strength was greatly reduced. I almost died in there. What about you? Although I didn't go through the two-world mountain with you, I've investigated your experiences in the two-world mountain very clearly. You only need to find someone who has gone through the two-world mountain, and you'll know everything. But as far as I know, other than the first half of the journey where you went through some tough battles, the rest of the journey could be described as smooth sailing. And this was when the two-world mountain strength was not reduced, and there were many divine king realm life devouring beasts everywhere. Haven't you thought about the reason behind this? When Saint Sun Wu Hua's words entered the ears of the geniuses who had gone through the two-world mountain, many of their expressions immediately changed. Saint Sun Wu Hua, are you saying that the second half of the journey was actually Yang Yutian secretly protecting us? Asked Ping Yixing from the Emperor Lotus Sword Sect. He was very uneasy right now because when they had gone through the two-world mountain, many inexplicable things had happened along the way. Saint Sun Wu Hua did not answer directly. Instead, he asked, "You can think about it carefully. After Yang Yutian left her group, did you encounter very few high-tier life-devouring beasts? As for those groups of life-devouring beasts that often number in the tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands, you have never encountered them before. Even if you did encounter them occasionally, they were weak groups that did not pose a threat to you. No wonder we encountered fewer and fewer life-sucking beasts when we were traveling through the two-world mountain. Even when we passed by the life-sucking beasts' nests a few times, they were all empty. Now that I think about it, it's obvious that they were cleaned up beforehand. Is Yang Yutian really a primordial realm expert? He only used the appearance of the life-sucking beast king to break away from the group, and then hid in the dark to protect us. Do you still remember the pulses of battle between primordial realm, life-devouring beasts when we crossed the two-world mountain? Of course, all of us were frightened out of our wits. Was that Yang Yutian fighting the primordial realm, life-devouring beast? Saint Sun Wu Hua's guesses were not without reason. With his logical deductions, it confirmed that Yang Yutian was the leader of the fifth hall bit by bit. This was because many of the clues matched up far too well, to the point where no one could find any flaws at all. The prodigies gathered there became more and more suspicious of Yang Yutian's identity, as all of Saint Sun Wu Hua's deductions made sense. They did not seem far-fetched at all. However, Yang Yutian gave them a completely different feeling from the leader of the fifth hall. The former had once drunk and chatted with them in the 100 Saint City, so he was a person they could befriend. On the other hand, the latter was the domineering fifth hall master of the Darkstar clan. He was a powerful figure who had decisively struck out and heavily injured a vice leader of the sixth hall due to a disagreement in the pantheon of gods. In their minds, they were unable to overlap these two figures with completely different identities. What happened afterwards? Did the fifth hall master die after his betrayal? A great elder of a peak clan asked coldly. After the incident in the royal capital, I entered the two-world mountain. I don't know what happened afterwards. However, I'm basically certain that the leader of the fifth hall is Yang Yutian without a doubt, said Saint Sun Wu Hua. What a Yang Yutian! He actually dares to trick our heaven sect. Even the Tianhe clan won't be able to protect him now. The heaven immortal great elder of the heaven sect, Zhan Yin, could not help but bellow out furiously. His face was ashen as he was furious. Back then, in order to gather enough supreme grade divine crystals in just 3 days, he had personally set out as a great elder of the heaven sect. Not only did he travel across the entire sacred immortal world, he had even put aside his pride to find many organizations to sign promissory notes. He had only managed to gather the divine crystals after scraping them together. In the end, all of this was a complete scam. He, a dignified grand elder, was actually played in circles by a junior. This was simply a great humiliation. He Qianqi raised his eyebrows and glanced at Zhan Yin from the corner of his eyes. He chuckled. Zhan Yin, don't be so certain. If that Yang Yutian really is the leader of the fifth hall, how can he be an ordinary person to be able to cultivate to such a level in 1,000 years? What if he's a disciple of a Grand Exalt? Would your heaven sect dare to kill a Grand Exalt's disciple? If he really is the disciple of a Grand Exalt, why would he need to hide like this? It's even more impossible for him to stand together with your Tianhe clan, Zhan Yin coldly said, opposing He Qianqi. As long as that Yang Yutian is still alive, it's only a matter of time before he leaves the realm of the fallen beast. Old Man will be guarding this place. As for whether he's the fifth palace master or not, we'll know once he comes out, said a grand elder through gritted teeth. Subsequently, the 52 top forces in the 100 Saint City that had paid tribute to the Fifth Hall Master, as well as Chu Jie's 5 great clans. A total of 57 great forces stood guard outside the passageway between the two worlds. They were prepared to wait for Yang Yutian to appear. He Qianqian's face was filled with worry. She was deeply worried about Jianqin's safety. When the 57 forces in the 100 Saint City united, their Tianhe clan didn't dare to say anything, not to mention their Sky Crane clan. Even Hao Jia, who was at the peak of his power, had to avoid him for the time being. Immediately, many chaotic primes sat down at the entrance of the tunnel. They did not plan on returning to their divine halls to rest. Instead, they waited outside the tunnel. The Supreme Elder of the Heavenly Thunder Tribe was one of them. At this moment, an ordinary elder from the Celestial Thunder clan arrived before the Great Elder with a worried expression. He hurriedly transmitted his voice. "Great Elder, we just received a distress call from the 9th and 13th Elders. It's the highest distress call. The 9th and 13th Elders are probably in a life-threatening situation in the burial zone." Hearing this, the Supreme Elder of the Heavenly Thunder Tribe frowned and asked in a low voice, "What is going on? Why would the 9th and 13th Elders go to the burial region?" "The situation is like this, Grand Elder. Not long ago, our Heavenly Thunder Clan's disciples were in danger in the burial realm. When we received the distress signal, the 9th and 13th Elders immediately rushed over. But just now, we actually received a call for help from the 9th and 13th Elders. The 9th Elder is a 7th Heavenly Layer Infinite Prime, while the 13th Elder is a 4th Heavenly Layer Infinite Prime. Yet even the two of them faced life-threatening danger. Probably only the Great Elder can deal with the danger they faced," the ordinary elder said politely. "Give me their locations." The Great Elder of the Heavenly Thunder clan immediately stood up. A primordial realm expert of the clan was in danger, so he had to go and provide assistance. This was because infinite primes were extremely important figures to any peak clan. They could not lose them so easily. After knowing the location, the Supreme Elder of the Heavenly Thunder Tribe immediately turned into a bolt of lightning and disappeared into the vast starry sky. The graveyard was an ancient battlefield in the Radiant Immortal Dimension. All those years ago, before the Radiant Immortal Dimension was destroyed, a large number of experts had fallen here because of the battles here, and that was how it got the name of the graveyard. The burial region was a place where the corpses of many experts were buried. At the same time, there were also many fragments of divine artifacts and some special materials that had been formed due to the special environment. There was even a powerful inheritance. In short, as the burial ground of many experts, there were countless fortuitous encounters hidden in the burial region. As a result, the burial region naturally became a land of fortune in the eyes of many cultivators, because there were too many great, fortuitous encounters that were sufficient to allow one to soar into the sky and change one's fate. The burial region was an extremely vast shattered star domain. A single plane in the Saints' world was not even 1/10,000th the size of the burial region. Even the powerful senses of the soul of a Grand Prime could only cover an extremely tiny region of the burial region. Moreover, the entire burial region was filled with brutal energy and chaotic laws. Even the senses of the souls of Grand Primes would be suppressed in this world with incomplete laws. They would not be able to use the laws they controlled completely due to the fragmentation of the laws. At this moment, pulses of energy appeared on a shattered planet in the graveyard. Several hundred disciples in the attire of the Heavenly Thunder Tribe had already lost all signs of life. They had been reduced to cold corpses on the ground. In the middle of these corpses, there were 2 old men in tattered clothes who were half kneeling on the ground. Their faces were extremely pale, and their eyes were filled with fear and anger as they stared at a white-clothed woman who had her back to them several hundred meters away. The woman gave off an irresistible pressure, such that the 2 infinite primes were unable to stand up. They could only kneel on one knee in humiliation. The 2 old men were the 9th and 13th Elders of the Heavenly Thunder Tribe. Chapter 2957. Who are you? Why are you opposing our Heavenly Thunder Clan? We've already asked for help from the clan. The great elder of the clan will be here very soon. No matter how powerful you are, you're not the great elder's opponent. It's still not too late for you to retreat now. Otherwise, once the great elder arrives, you won't be able to leave even if you want to. The two elders of the Heavenly Thunder Clan put on a tough front. They knew just how powerful the woman was, so they had already placed all their hopes on the great elder behind them. However, the white-clothed woman who had her back to them completely ignored their threats. She seemed to disdain wasting her breath on the two infinite primes, or in other words, cultivators like them were just too weak in her eyes. They were so weak that she could not even be bothered to glance at them. However, the woman in white was in no hurry to kill the infinite primes. She only used her presence to suppress them, forcing them to kneel there. They could not even circulate their cultivation. Before long, a powerful presence that belonged to a chaotic prime suddenly appeared. The great elder of the Heavenly Thunder Clan had arrived. A bolt of lightning suddenly appeared in the sky, directly moving towards the woman in white with unbelievable speed. The bolt of lightning moved extremely quickly, arriving before the elder in a single instance. In the end, it turned into an old figure. He was the great elder of the Heavenly Thunder Clan who had hurried over from Dark Star City. Great elder, you've finally come. Look at us. We're elders of the Heavenly Thunder Clan. Yet this woman wants us to kneel here. Her actions are not just insulting us, but our entire Heavenly Thunder Clan. Great elder, several hundred disciples of our clan were killed by this person. The two of us are useless, so the dignity of the clan can only be defended by the great elder. The arrival of the Sky, Thunder, tribe's grand elder was like a life-saving straw to the 9th elder and the 13th elder. Their hearts, which had been in their throats, finally relaxed. In their eyes, once the great elder arrived, he would be able to deal with all the problems in the shattered sacred immortals world, no matter what, with his cultivation as a 6th heavenly layer chaotic prime. Who are you? What grievances do you have with our Heavenly Thunder Clan? Why do you want to kill our clansmen? The grand elder of the Heavenly Thunder tribe didn't care about the two ordinary elders. He didn't even try to resist the pressure the woman in white was exerting on the two elders. He made the two elders stand up. Instead, he was stern as he stared at the woman in white's back. He was unable to see through the woman's exact strength. He felt like she was shrouded in mist, preventing him from seeing through anything. As for her presence, even though the woman in white's presence was that of a chaotic prime, the great elder did not believe that was the woman's strength. That was because the white-clothed woman's reaction to his arrival was simply too calm. She still showed him her back, giving off an unfathomable feeling. He was a 6th heavenly layer chaotic prime. Logically speaking, in the sacred immortals world where no grand primes moved about and chaotic primes ruled supreme, he would be an important figure who could stir up trouble no matter where he went. Yet the woman in white did not even glance at him. He didn't know if the woman in white really had such high standards and strength, or if she was just bluffing. However, the supreme elder of the Heavenly Thunder Clan became vigilant in his heart. You don't have the right to know my identity. As for killing your Heavenly Thunder Clan, the woman in white's voice was cold. She was emotionless. After a pause, she continued, "It's said that your Heavenly Thunder Clan actually belongs to one of the 8 archaic clans of the Saints' world. The Thor clan." "That's right. Our Heavenly Thunder Clan is a branch of the Heavenly Thunder Clan. Furthermore, our Heavenly Thunder Clan's founder is an ancestor of the Heavenly Thunder Clan," said a supreme elder proudly. However, just as he finished speaking, the expression of the Sky Thunder tribe's grand elder suddenly changed. A great sense of danger suddenly rose in his heart. However, before he could react, 5 illusory long swords quietly appeared, like a sharp blade cutting through a piece of paper. They effortlessly pierced the Sky Thunder tribe's grand elder's heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidney. The great elder of the celestial thunder tribe immediately felt that he couldn't move his body. When the 5 illusory swords pierced his body, it was as if a body-freezing curse had been cast on him. He couldn't even move a finger. Who are you? Do you know that you're standing against our heavenly Thunder Clan, as well as the Thor Clan? The great elder of the heavenly Thunder tribe sent a voice transmission through his Yuan spirit in terror. His heart was instantly filled with a deep sense of fear. This was because he wore a set of medium-quality God artifact inner armor when he came. Just the inner armor alone possessed extremely great defense, but now it had been pierced through like paper. The woman's strength left him astounded. A cold light immediately flashed through the woman's eyes when she heard him mention the Thor clan. She said coldly, "The Thor clan will be killing you." As she said that, she formed a seal with her hands. In the next moment, the 5 illusionary swords that had stabbed into the great elder immediately shone with dazzling light. Immediately afterwards, extremely dense origin energy gushed out from the great elder's body at an insane speed, like a flood that had been cut off from the great elder's body. The power that leaked out did not dissipate into the air. Instead, it rapidly condensed into a white crystal 3 feet above the heavenly Thunder tribe's grand elder's head. Furthermore, as the cultivation of the Sky Thunder tribe's supreme elder continued to leak out, the energy within the white crystal expanded to a shocking level in an instant. You are depriving me of my cultivation base. No, this is impossible. What kind of evil technique is this? How could it have such a heaven-defying ability? You vicious woman, you will die a horrible death. The heavenly Thunder tribe's grand elder let out a miserable shriek. His facial features were distorted, becoming extremely ferocious. At the same time, he was filled with deep fear. At that moment, he was a mighty 6th heavenly layer chaotic prime, yet he was like fish on the chopping block. He could not resist at all. The 9th elder and the 13th elder, who were half kneeling at the side, were scared silly. Their bodies were trembling violently, and they were about to faint from fear. In their eyes, the supreme elder in front of them was an existence akin to a god. Yet at that moment he had fallen to such a state that caused the 2 elders who personally witnessed everything to be nearly frightened to death. Senior, please spare me. Spare my life. I'm willing to do anything for you. The great elder of the celestial thunder tribe begged in horror. He had tried to abandon his physical body and let his nascent spirit escape, but his nascent spirit was firmly locked in his physical body. He could not escape at all. The woman in white ignored the chaotic prime's surrender. Her gaze remained cold as she turned her back to everyone. She did not even look at the chaotic prime. Not long after, the great supreme elder of the heavenly Thunder tribe was killed by the woman in white after losing all of his cultivation. The 2 elders who witnessed the whole process did not escape the fate either. The white crystal condensed from all the cultivation of a chaotic prime drifted into the woman's hand with destructive power. It hovered 3 inches above her palm. Looking at the crystal in her hand, the white-clothed woman's expression finally changed. It was an extremely complicated expression. She sighed softly and said, "Ever since this princess started cultivating the Heavenly Heart Mysteries art, I have never used the heavenly punishment because it takes away a cultivator's cultivation. It is too cruel. However, the Thor family should be punished. It's not just the Thor clan. The Dao clan, Ziwei clan, and Myriad Bone Guild should be punished by the heavens as well. It just so happens that I'm in urgent need of recovering my strength. This Chaos Prime is just the beginning." Chapter 2958. The headquarters of the Heavenly Thunder clan was located on the Western Province, one of the 49 Great Plains of the Saints' World. It was a plateau that was constantly enveloped by the power of lightning. The laws of lightning were extremely dense there. All cultivators who comprehended the laws of lightning would be able to achieve twice the results with half the effort if they cultivated there. In the depths of the plateau that was surrounded by the power of lightning, there were two dazzling, violet seas of lightning. Not only was the power of the laws of lightning there shockingly dense, but even the level of the power of laws was enough to make any chaotic prime pale. This was because even a sliver or strand of the laws of lightning that filled the place was enough to injure chaotic primes. To no surprise, the two seas of lightning were where the two ancestors of the heavenly Thunder clan cultivated. As for the Sea of Lightning, it was not naturally formed by the world. Instead, it was formed by the laws of the two great ancestors. With just a thought, any one of them could form a world of lightning. Suddenly, the two seas of lightning shuddered together. In the next moment, an overwhelming presence radiated out, blotting out the sky. All the ancestors on the western province opened their eyes and glanced in the direction of the heavenly Thunder clan. Elder Rong is actually dead. A deep voice rang out from one of the seas of lightning in the depths of the headquarters of the heavenly Thunder clan. Elder Rong's Thunder Soul imprint has shattered. This is a sign that his soul has been destroyed. The second ancestor of the heavenly Thunder clan spoke from within the second sea of lightning. His voice was icy cold, and it was filled with fury. Elder Rong was a great elder of the heavenly Thunder clan, a chaotic prime. No matter which peak organization it was, someone like that would be a pillar of support for the clan. They could not afford to lose him. As one of the peak organizations in the Western Province, the Heavenly Thunder clan only had 8 great elders who were chaotic primes in total. Losing even one of them was a great loss. Elder Rong went to the ruins of the spirit's world. He died there. Was he killed by someone, or did he die in the cruel environment there? Elder Rong wasn't a reckless person. With his cultivation as a 5th heavenly layer chaotic prime, it's impossible for him to die in such a horrible environment. He was probably killed by someone. How can this be? Since this person has the ability to kill Elder Rong, how can he not know about the background of our Heavenly Thunder clan? The two ancestors of the Heavenly Thunder clan discussed sternly. They even began to peer into the heavens in an attempt to understand the circumstances behind Elder Rong's death, but they found nothing in the end. At this moment, an infinite prime elder of the Heavenly Thunder clan rushed over with lightning speed. He knelt down very far away from the two seas of lightning. There was some fear and panic on his face as he said, "Ancestor, we've just received an urgent request for help from the Great Elder H. He encountered life-threatening danger in the burial region of the spirit's world." The infinite prime elder was extremely frightened. After all, this was a great elder who was a chaotic prime. People like that were supreme existences in the Heavenly Thunder clan. They could do whatever they wanted. Yet now, they had sent an urgent request for help. This was something that had never happened in the past several millennia. The burial region? Humph, old man. I'd like to see who's bold enough to kill a great elder of our Heavenly Thunder clan. Get Sua Luo, Lian Qi, Lei Jidong, and Lei Shun to go there personally and investigate the cause of Elder Rong's death. An ancestor of the Heavenly Thunder clan immediately passed down orders. Out of the 4 great elders, one was a 9th heavenly layer chaotic prime. 2 were at the 7th heavenly layer, and 1 was at the 6th heavenly layer. Out of the 8 great elders of the Heavenly Thunder clan, 3 were late chaotic primes, 2 were mid-chaotic primes, and 3 were early chaotic primes. With that, the Heavenly Thunder clan sent out all their powerful great elders, only leaving behind the 3 early chaotic primes to watch over the clan. Immediately, the 4 great elders set off together. Due to the urgency of the matter, they did not travel through space. Instead, they directly took teleportation formations and hurried to the boundary between the saint's world and the spirit's world as quickly as possible. They arrived at the ruins of the spirit's world through a spatial tunnel before moving with lightning speed towards where Elder Rong had been buried, the burial region. Over a dozen days later, the 4 great elders of the Heavenly Thunder clan finally arrived at the place where Elder Rong had died. As soon as they arrived, they saw Elder Rong's corpse. It was not just Elder Rome. There were also the corpses of the 2 ordinary elders and several hundred clansmen. They were all lying there in the same state as before. Nearby, a white-clothed woman had her back to them. She sat on a rock and cultivated. A white crystal hovered above the white-clothed woman's head. Extremely pure energy radiated from the crystal, forming a barrier of light. The white-clothed woman absorbed all of it like a whale sucking in water. The white crystal became smaller and smaller as the energy was constantly drained away. The woman in white did not seem to sense the arrival of the 4 great elders at all. She continued to cultivate by herself. She did not even open her eyes. "Were you the one who killed the great elders of our heavenly Thunder Clan?" The 4 great elders all looked at the woman in white as they asked coldly. However, the 4 of them secretly became vigilant as if they were about to face a great enemy. Even the strongest among them, the 9th heavenly layer, chaotic prime great elder, became extremely stern at that moment. This was because they could tell with a single glance just how clean Elder Rong's death had been. His clothes were neat, and the surroundings were as good as new. There were no signs of battle at all. Only Grand Primes could achieve something like that. Moreover, the woman in white was far too composed. She did not leave even after killing a great elder of the Heavenly Thunder Clan. Instead, she remained where she was. She did not worry about the arrival of reinforcements at all. There were only 2 possibilities for her to do that. Firstly, she had not expected reinforcements at all. Secondly, she was so powerful that she did not need to fear any reinforcements from the Heavenly Thunder Clan. It was impossible for a 5th heavenly layer chaotic prime who could kill Elder Rong so easily to be as stupid as the first possibility. That only left the second possibility. "Sai, is it just the 4 of you? Not a single Grand Prime from your clan has come?" At this moment, the white-clothed woman let out a sigh, and it carried a sense of loss and regret that could be heard by anyone. However, when the 4 great elders of the Heavenly Thunder Clan heard what she said, their expressions immediately changed drastically. "Oh no, it's a trap! It's a trap! This person definitely has the power to take on our ancestor. She actually wants to lure our ancestor over. Run, run, scatter and run." The 9th heavenly layer chaotic prime from the Heavenly Thunder Clan basically roared out. Elder Rong's death, the white-clothed woman's calmness, and her last words allowed the 4 elders to instantly deduce the white-clothed woman's strength. This terrified the 4 supreme elders of the Heavenly Thunder Clan.